This journey of me following the migrants went from sort of 10 in the morning, all around the clock, to late at night, to the point where, you know, on buses, on trains, through streets, at every key point, French military police and the French police, they were there. They were on the bus, taking down notes, taking pictures, but not doing anything to deter the migrants or stop them, just being there. I was sat in the tent and he was showing me through photos of his phone, scrolling through. This was barbaric, horrific stuff. Blokes going through walls in vehicles and then jumping out and shooting everyone. You know, his WhatsApp picture was him with a mask on, with a gun like that.
You're in a tent with this guy?
I'm in a tent with this guy, and actually he's just showing me this stuff. I'm just thinking, this is not the kind of bloke you want to be coming to the UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good morning to you. Just gone 6 o'clock. It is Thursday, the 12th of February, and it is Talk, of course, the home of common sense, the home of the hard-working alarm clock Brit. Good morning, wherever you're listening in the United Kingdom. As you know, on this show, the day's news through your eyes, your comments, your texts on 87222, and we're doing a prize this morning. It's a banana. You can get a banana for the first voice note to Christian. Bit of sympathy to Christian this morning. He's experiencing what I've experienced for 40 years, which is he's had no sleep because his daughter, bless her, is ill. I've tried to tell him, bit more medication, knock her out. It's not having that. Bless him. So go gently with him on the old voice note. Just go, well, just laugh at him. 0344 499 1000. Big M is here, and Tommy returns on the phones. Tommy is in the building. So much in the news. If you are waking up, if you're heading back from the night shift, if you're desperately just having a quick half an hour before the kids get up, what an evening again. Keir Starmer, the man who yesterday was accused by Kemi Badenoch of giving power to paedophile apologists. This is on the back of Mandelson. And then yesterday all about Matthew Doyle, a close colleague of Starmer's. Turns out he knew that he'd been supporting a councillor with paedophile links before he gave him a knighthood. Oh, your judgment, Sir Keir, is getting worse by the day. Last night, up popped Manchester co-owner Jim Radcliffe. Sir Jim, who possibly, to most people, is one of the most successful businessmen this country has ever had. Ineos, he created, he owns part of Manchester United. He said, and I quote, front page of the Express, UK has been colonised by migrants. He says the population has risen from 58 to 70 million, and we've stretched ourselves. He says 9 million people are on benefits, and the huge amount of immigrants coming in is not helping. He's questioned whether Keir Starmer is the right man to lead the country forward. Starmer's response, I think you should apologise. What, for being honest? A really successful businessman? Well, I think you should apologise for jamming your government and us looking at what you've done for people who are paedophile apologists. I completely agree with Kemi Badenoch. What do you make of him? Another disgustingly inept performance yesterday. 0344 499 1000. Do you agree with Sir Jim? Do you disagree? Meanwhile, today, this'll get you going. Labour have been accused of rank hypocrisy as they bring in a new law to let 16-year-olds vote. The change will mean voting rights will be extended to 1.7 million extra youngsters. The opposition parties claim the PM doesn't know what an adult is because he's trying to ban them from doing stuff like buying alcohol-free beer. So let me get this absolutely right. You can't buy alcohol-free beer, but you can vote for the next Prime Minister. Brilliant. You can't take your driving test, but you can vote for the next Prime Minister. Am I cynical and alone in thinking this is just a way for the Labour Party to think that they might get re-elected? And Kerry Badenoch, as I said, accusing Starmer of packing his government with the paedophile apologists for nominating Forum advisor Matthew Doyle for a peerage, despite the fact he knew that the guy had links with a man, Sean Morton, who admitted indecent child image offences in 2017. That is our Prime Minister. Happy to give his mates, you know, all of that. That's fine. But let's get really offended when Sir Jim Radcliffe comes out and speaks what many people in this country agree with. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. And as a bit of fun, and as it's my last show before Valentine's Day, bit of a twist. I'm not going to go, what are you going to buy your partner? What would be romantic? Great story today. Woman admitting that could get the Jeremy Carr show music. A dishwasher row ended my 20-year marriage. She walked away because the bugger, she said, couldn't do the dishwasher. So instead of celebrating the love of your life, what's caused the breakdown of one of your relationships? He or she still breathing? Give me a bit of fun on the text. Look back. Why did a relationship break down? Christian's told me he broke up with a woman because she woke up one day and looked at him and went, I'm out of here. 87222. Mark's not speaking so far, but we say a very good morning. Honestly, how excited will the men be? Day 3 of 4, by popular demand. Ladies and gentlemen, Poppy Coburn's back.
Hello, good morning.
You're like my early morning wife.
I know, this is quite nice, isn't it? I wake up, my alarm goes off at 5:30. You've already been awake for, what, about 6 hours?
I was up at 2:30 today.
You know, I roll in, you look bright and fresh. I'm still getting the gunk out of my eyes in the morning.
It's lovely to have you here. Thank you for coming back again. Let's start. Let's go straight to it. Front page of the Express. Sir Jim Radcliffe, boss of INEOS, UK colonised by migrants, claims United chief. He says, immigrants are costing us too much money. You can't have an economy with 9 million people on benefits and huge levels of immigrants coming in. He's absolutely right, isn't he?
Well, he's just speaking for what the majority of people in the country think. Isn't it so funny to see the reaction to his completely innocuous comments, which, by the way, he's been fact-checked by all these people who go, well, he's very inaccurate because he's saying that this many people came since 2020, but that's not true. Well, the truth is that 11 million people have come, and this is not counting from beyond 2020, in the 20-year period from 2000 onwards, from the year 2000.
So he's right?
So he is right. He's just slightly wrong on the dates, which you would expect from someone who isn't a professional journalist. It's OK if he doesn't get the numbers always right.
Let's play the clip, because it's brilliant. This is Sir Jim Radcliffe saying, we're under threat. Have a listen, have a watch.
I don't know whether it's just the apparatus that hasn't allowed Keir to do it, or he's maybe too nice. He's a nice... I mean, I know Keir, he's a nice man, I like him. But it's a tough job, and I think you have to do some difficult things with the UK to get it back on track, because at the moment I don't think the economy's in a good... You can't afford... you can't have an economy with 9 million people on benefits and huge levels of immigrants coming in. I mean, the UK's being colonised. It's costing too much money. It will cause...
It's been colonised.
It'll cause... Well, yeah. The UK's being colonised by immigrants, really, isn't it?
It's interesting, isn't it? Everybody's like, oh, my God. Well, not anybody has got a brain cell. Jeremy, Tony Gallen, Pops, two-tier Keir should apologise to us for ruining my country and promoting paedophile apologists to high office. Morning, JK, says Paul. Sir Jim is 100% right, even. White. We have been colonised. Starmer, on the other hand, is a complete waste of space. Resign now.
Well, he's completely right. This is someone who's brought so much money into the British economy through his business ventures. You know, his INEOS group, this is a chemicals company, right, which was a massive British success story. And yet what's happening to the chemicals industry, because of people like, you know, Ed Miliband and the Labour Party, is now massively on the decline. Why wouldn't he feel that way? He's running a business. He knows what it's like when there are loads of people who are off work. You know, and he is right, millions of people are off work.
It was a business-type discussion. You know, you can say, as not a trained journalist. It's really interesting. Mark, though, interesting, different sides. That's what this show's about. Morning, Jez. I agree with Sir Jim, but I would say immigration done correctly works. When you have people who want to integrate and be part of the UK, it's fine. Coming here, though, to drain and contribute nothing. And that is the real difference. And we have to keep pointing that out, because the people who are not looking at all sides, will say every single person that comes to this country is a disgrace. I think the reason people are so frustrated and we focus on illegal migration is because so much of that has happened. Yes, there's been positive migration in the past, but right now we have an issue with people coming here who shouldn't be here and playing a system that can't afford to even do right by its own people.
This is the stuff that really annoys me, though, with this whole, like, fact-check culture, that like, everyone basically closes ranks as soon as someone says that there's a problem with immigration in this country. Well, I can look at figures too, OK, and I can tell you that a lot of people who have come to the UK, particularly in the last 5 years, will never be net contributors in their lifetime. That isn't necessarily even from the fact that some of them aren't
Oh,
working.
you horribly racist woman.
But this is just, if you are in charge of the country, if you're a Labour politician, because apparently they're in charge of the country, why can't you have a conversation about facts?
Because we know, and I find this really interesting, please don't take this as a compliment to say this to a young lady who would be a completely different generation because you think like me. A lot of your generation, which winds the hell out of me, I'm prepared to listen to their view, but any view I've got, or anybody of age or experience, is all of those things that we get labelled with every single day. I'm very happy to hear different views. I've said it and I'll always say it, but you're going to hear mine.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that, right?
It's just this game that they play. You know, there's been a lot of anger over his use of the word colonise. How dare you say that? Well, I'm sorry, I've been hearing from the left for several years. In fact, Sadiq Khan's put a poem up on the Tube, which I actually remembered last night, called Colonisation in Reverse. And it's a poem about people who are coming to the UK in the latter half of the 20th century, and the whole point is that because we had the British Empire, you're going to have immigration now, and it's kind of like a little bit of a punishment.
Payback.
Right, payback and punishment. So hang on, you're allowed to celebrate that. Yeah. You celebrate it for years and years, you put poems up about it on the Tube, and then when someone says, yeah, it's colonisation, you go, how dare you say that? Yeah. How dare you say that?
It does sum up this argument. It does sum up entirely the split, doesn't it? Yeah. You know, if somebody like Sir Jim Radcliffe, who I can't believe looks like that, by the way, with 3 billion quid in the bank. He looks like he's just walked out of a hairdryer, doesn't he? But I will say, you know, he's entitled to his opinion. But they won't have that. They won't have it at all. Sean in Gloucester, good morning, JK. Interestingly, nobody's mentioned Poppy so far this morning. Just saying, maybe they're bored of you, Pops. When will Keith Stalin ever tell the truth? The cretin has no judgment, morals, integrity at all. He surrounds himself with like-minded morons. And now, it seems, paedophile apologists. Jim Radcliffe absolutely nailed it. Let's move on to that story, because this is extraordinary. Kemi Badenoch yesterday accusing Starmer of packing his government with paedophile apologists for nominating his former advisor Matthew Doyle for a peerage, despite knowing that he provided a paedophile counsellor with support because he believed in his innocence.
It's brilliant, isn't it?
On the back of Mandelson again.
You cannot make it up. Keir Starmer, every week, he'll get up there and PMQs and he'll say, I was elected on a mandate of change and I am willing to change.
She's doing it now.
And yeah, he does the same things over and over. It gets to the point where you need to ask the serious question, which is, if you constantly defer to process, if you are such a mug that you believe what everyone is telling you, you are not suitable to be Prime Minister.
I don't think he listens to anybody. I don't even go. I just think he has the worst judgment. Let's just watch this. Is right. This was Starmer on Matthew Doyle trying to backtrack furiously. Have a listen.
Mr. Speaker, Matthew Doyle did not give a full account of his actions. And on Monday, I promised my party and my country there would be change. And yesterday, I removed the whip from Matthew Doyle.
Change, breakfast clubs. How can you not, if you are told that a man has supported a paedophile on the back of everything that's going on, give him a peerage and row back? This was Kemi attacking him on Doyle. Have a watch.
How dare he criticise us? We weren't the ones stuffing government with hypocrites and paedophile apologists.
She's right, isn't she?
She's spot on. She's totally spot on. You know, if it happens once, OK, well, that's pretty bad, but everyone makes mistakes in politics. How many times has this happened now? Yeah. Seriously, there's a serious problem within the Labour Party on this stuff. I think it's completely unacceptable. And, you know, just the excuse that he always falls back on, which is, well, I asked and I'm such an innocent, pure soul and all these people are just deceiving me. How awful. I'm sorry, I really don't buy it. I think, as in the case of Peter Mandelson, he was well aware that he was taking a kind of risk. You know, with Matthew
Why would you take that risk?
With the Doyle case, with the Matthew Doyle case, he fast-tracked that appointment to the Lords. It was fast-tracked. You don't get through the Lords process that quickly. Anyone who's ever engaged with someone who has will tell you it's quite slow and bureaucratic. Why was it fast-tracked?
So he fast-tracks a mate who supports paedophiles but jumps out of his skin and says, how dare Sir Jim Radcliffe say this country has been colonised. Morning, Paula.
Morning, guys. I completely agree with the coach who said that we have been colonised by immigrants. We actually have. None of these people are women that have come over lately. So, yeah, I agree with him. Starmer, you're going to apologise. No, mate, I'm not apologising for nothing. I'm not apologising for being honest, but I think you was a bit nasty. Mate, do one, yeah? Great show, guys, as always. Paula in London.
Mate, do one, 6:15.
I love that Keir.
I
love that Keir Starmer accent. That was brilliant.
They're coming in by the bucket load. Hello to Maggie. Morning, JK. Still no mention of Poppy this morning. The only apology I want to hear is from Starmer and how he's let us and this country down. That statement of us being colonised is true. He hates any kind of criticism. Yeah, Trev, Boston. How to survive a long-term relationship. After the first 6 months, say nothing. This is the story, for a bit of fun, that a dishwasher row ended a 20-year marriage. The woman walked away saying, I'm not ashamed, I'm done with him, he can't stack the dishwasher correctly. And ahead of Valentine's Day, we thought we'd have a bit of a laugh. Interestingly, what Trev says highlights what my father said before he passed away. You don't have to be sad, he's dead, as is my mother, I'm an orphan. I said to him, how did you last 60 years? He said, I stopped bloody listening after 6 months. Any story for us of a relationship ending weirdly at some point in your life?
I'm trying to think.
No, because I love my partner. I'm going to be with him forever.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course. I'm trying to think if I've had any... I can only think of a depressing one, which is COVID lockdowns. Well, it's slightly hard to maintain a relationship with the whole country's locked down, but that's about it for me.
It was a great way to excuse a relationship and get out of one, wasn't it? Morning, Nigel James. Can you stop pandering to the woke, Kyle? It is St. Valentine's Day, not Valentine's Day, you cretin, a Christian Saint's Day. Dropping the saint panders to those seeking diversity, says Nigel in Doncaster. Well, you can do one as well. Jez. Jim Radcliffe doesn't appoint paedophile apologists to top jobs. Starmer does. Sharon Miller, 1,000% agree with Jim Radcliffe. This country is full of lazy illegals on benefits that don't want to work and drain our system, all at the expense of taxpayers, costing our country a fortune. Well done, Jim Radcliffe, for calling this out, because our useless Labour government can't see this. That's from Sharon in Staffordshire. Thank you very much indeed. 0344 499 1004. Those voice notes, 87222. You're waking up on Thursday, the 12th of February, to the news that Sir Jim Radcliffe, the owner of Ineos and Manchester United, has said that this country is being overrun. We have an economy with 9 million people on benefits. In his words, huge levels of immigrants coming in, and we're being colonised. This has caused outrage amongst the woke left, especially Starmer, who demands he apologises. On the same day, he refuses to apologise, having backed another paedophile lover. Matthew Doyle, an advisor, was fast-tracked to a peerage despite his backing for a paedophile counsellor who admitted indecent child image offences in 2017. The man's judgment is in the toilet. Can I go with a subject that I know is going to wind alarm clock Britain up? Votes at 16. Labour today, Pops, have been accused of rank hypocrisies. They bring in a new law to let 16-year-olds vote. The change will mean voting rights will be extended to 1.7 million extra adults. The Tories claiming last night that the PM doesn't know what an adult is, after also trying to ban them from legal activities like buying alcohol-free beer. It's so ludicrous.
Well, you know,
if you're 12 and a half right now, you'll be able to vote in the next election.
Well, it's like this simultaneous, like, massive infantilisation, and also, let's quickly give them voting rights. And, you know, I'm very annoyed about this. Recently, I tried to buy Red Bull, and they wouldn't sell it to me because I didn't have my ID on me. A Red Bull. You know,
I was on the train recently and they made me show my senior rail cards.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Thanks, mate.
I would be very offended by that, to be fair. It's better to be too young. But I did say, like, seriously, like, I've got my work clothes on, here's my work badge. Do I look like I've come from school and I'm trying to steal a Red Bull so I can just have fun
A Red Bull, not 20 Marlboro Lights and a bottle of gin.
A Red Bull. But because, you know, it's now illegal, you have to do check 25 before you sell someone an energy drink. So it's this, like, they treat people like they are total idiots who cannot look out for themselves and have to be coddled in all aspects of life.
But it's a cynical ploy, let's be perfectly honest. This is to get a younger generation who maybe aren't tainted by what the truth is, or maybe through social media, That's what they're doing. But that doesn't... I'm probably old-fashioned. I don't think you should vote at 16. I think it's too bloody young.
No, I completely...
And I worry so much about the education system and what the education system is telling our children.
Well, I actually think no normal 16-year-old... I mean, I certainly didn't want to vote when I was 16. I actually wanted to buy a bottle of apple sours and go sit in the park with my friends. But there you go.
Sours?
Yeah. That's a retro, that's a throwback.
Yeah.
But, you know, what concerns me is the only people who will want to vote when they're 16 are, exactly as you say, people who have been told by the education system and their teachers, who might be quite left-leaning, go out and vote to stop, you know, the fascist reform government from coming into power, etc., etc. And I think it's a very transparent case of them trying to gerrymander the vote. What I will say, though, is maybe I have a little bit of trust in young people if they do go ahead with this. Who is actually going to go there on polling day and tick for Keir Starmer? Seriously. Of all ages.
Well, maybe, but more than that, I don't mean to be rude. I've got more kids than Boris Johnson. None of mine who were 16 would either be asked or would be out of bed to get up and go and have a vote.
Yeah, exactly. I just think, you know, as much as I disagree with it in principle, I think the Labour Party's gotten really desperate when they've got to the point where they need to desperately try and get all these votes in. But, yeah, let's see how many of them actually bother getting out of bed if it's raining or it's cold or it's in the morning.
6:21 on a Thursday morning, the delightfully brilliant Poppy Coburn back with us. You're waking up to the news that Sir Jim Radcliffe, the owner of Ineos, one of the most successful businessmen in this country, has said that we're under fire. We have an economy with 9 million people on benefits and we are being colonised by immigrants. This has resulted in the left, and particularly Starmer, demanding an apology. But he's not apologising for allowing another person with paedophile links, Matthew Doyle this time, to get a peerage. He was absolutely skewered at Prime Minister's Question Time yesterday. And I'd love to know your thoughts also on the fact that Labour wants 16-year-olds to vote in the next election. I can see it going down to like 5. Honestly, it's ludicrous. Your texts, your emails, your whatevers they are, get them in. Kev on Ratcliffe, good morning.
Morning, Jeremy. Kevin in Sheffield. I don't disagree with Sir Jim Ratcliffe's comments yesterday. Mainstream media seem to be nitpicking about he got his figures wrong, you know, not 58 million, etc. In fact, it's worse than that. I do think governments over many years, both Labour and Tory, have never told us truth about immigration, whether it's legal or illegal. I think it's all been a giant guess. But because immigration as such doesn't bother people in the Westminster bubble, they don't really care about it. They just think we're all racist. It's ridiculous. So, yeah, I don't disagree with Jim Radcliffe at all. Carry on the good work.
Join me, Rob Jenrick, on the Jeremy Carr Breakfast Show on Talk.
There's a lot of harm happening in the country right now. People feel like the country's in a mess.
What does this say about our entire prison, justice? The whole thing's a mess like so much else.
Well, it's a total shambles. Take away these human rights laws, which have got completely out of control now. You know, I do believe that economies can be fixed and you can get catch-up growth and ensure that when people come here, they're detained and deported swiftly.
Ring in, ask me any question. I'm here to answer.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 6:25. JK and the amazing Poppy Coburn from the Daily Telegraph reviewing your papers for Thursday morning. Roderick says, guys, the government are going to allow 16-year-olds to vote whilst telling them they can't use the internet until they are 16. This is completely and utterly bizarre. Heather Sewell says, Labour pedogate just keeps on coming. How many more paedophile apologists and peers now the Labour's Pandora's box is well and truly open? This is a gift that keeps on coming. Matt, good morning.
Hello, Poppy. Oh, and you, Jez. Matt from Warrington. Loading me van. Same old, same as. Yet another horrible story about Keir Starmer. It's like paedophile city and who's his best friends, and then he doesn't like it when someone like Sir Jim actually says something that we're all thinking, and he's saying he's out of order. I think the Labour Party are out of order. Working class, giving a 16-year-old a vote. My 16-year-old doesn't know a backside from her elbow, so she wouldn't know who to vote for, unless it's TikTok or Snapchat. It's a bit of pouting. It's mostly who'll be the best pouting Prime Minister she'd vote for. Oh, roll on the weekend. Have a good one. Bye.
What a great... My 16-year-old don't know an elbow from her ass, to be honest, unless it's pouting.
Prime Minister. Yeah. That's brilliant.
That's brilliant. And that is absolutely Matt. That is your alarm clock Brit that I get up every morning to talk to, because he's loading his van, he's doing his graft, and he's thinking, you know what, Sir Jim Radcliffe isn't wrong. If you're waking up, Sir Jim Radcliffe, the most successful, one of the most successful businessmen we have in this country, the owner of Ineos and co-owner of Manchester United, has said overnight that Britain has been colonised by immigrants. 9 million are on benefits, and our services are under attack because of how many are coming in. Starmer, oh, this is outrageous. How can you say these things on the same day that yet again another paedophile sort of... I don't know how you best describe Matthew Doyle. Matthew Doyle was a communications director. He left. He was fast-tracked to a peerage. Turns out he supported a councillor, Sean Morton, very, very supportive of him, and this guy had admitted indecent child image offences in 2017. And Starmer, before he gave him the peerage, knew it's in every paper. I mean, you have to ask. I mean, you talk about optics. You're a journalist, right? Do these people not realise how appalling that looks?
Well, that's the thing. I just don't buy the excuse, which is, oh, I'm such a pure-hearted person, I've been deceived. I do not buy that. You know, we forget that Keir Starmer was the head of the Crown Prosecution Service for many, many years. He was the BPP even, sorry. He was Director of Public Prosecutions. This is someone that should really have some of the best judgment in the country, considering he was overseeing serious criminal cases.
Can I say something that Boris Johnson got into trouble for, and I don't give a toss? This man let Jimmy Savile through his grasp and tried to say I was nothing to do with it.
Yeah. And you know what? The Labour Party, it does have past form in overseeing stuff, and this is all in the public record. You know, Harriet Harman, the paedophile information exchange in the 1970s, it's been widely reported on. You know, of course, she's said I was, misled. I wasn't aware of what happened. But you have to get to a point where you go, how many people have been misled by this stuff? Yeah. How many times have you got it wrong about the judgment of character for some of the most, depraved people in our society? If you are that gullible, get out of politics.
And also, can I just say, if you think about it in a more wide sense, you've got the Mandelson saga tied into Epstein. They made him the American ambassador. You've got Matthew Doyle being fast-tracked to a peerage, which doesn't seem to affect Starmer, these two paedophile lovers, and that's what they should be called. And then it's shock, isn't it? Oh, I shouldn't have done this. Oh, they didn't tell me the truth. And yet what's glaringly obvious, and I'm going to keep saying this till they drag me out of here, not a word from his mouth about finally having an inquiry into hundreds of white English girls, right? Fact, check it, being raped.
Yeah.
By grooming gangs for years.
Look at what Lucy Powell had said, where she was like, it's dog whistle politics, when someone was talking about the grooming gangs. You know, I wonder if they're concerned about the dog whistle politics again of Jim Radcliffe just telling the truth that everyone else believes. They do not want to hear it when it's politically inconvenient for them to do so.
You're absolutely right.
They will
Steve,
ignore it.
Steve says, allowing 16-year-olds to vote on one condition, they have to be at the polling station before 7 a.m. Yeah, that'll be good. John O'Hagan, I don't know, I went, Hagan. Morning, Poppy and the team. Brilliant, loving the show. My 15-year-old son will vote Reform, so maybe this might backfire. Good morning to Perry. How are you, Pez?
Morning, Jeremy. I can remember Lisa Nandy, whatever her name is, on Question Time once, saying that Mia Begum, whatever her name is, should be allowed back in the country. She was like 15 and a half years old. She didn't know what she was doing. She was groomed, you know, but 6 months later, she should be classed as a responsible adult and be allowed to vote. But at 15 years old, over 15 years old, she was young, vulnerable, didn't know what she was doing and was groomed. So, I don't know. And then, you know, a 15-year-old in 11 months can't go on social media, but at 16 they should be allowed to vote. Labour's policies are all up and down and they can't work them out.
Don't think anybody can work them out. I'm just looking at the headlines on Sky and the headlines on the BBC. Jim Radcliffe, offensive and wrong, which just smacks, doesn't it? It smacks of people not liking the truth. So Jim Radcliffe, according to Bill and Rumsey, says, was talking from a business point of view. Starmer and Davies showed their true colours, and this should show what it will be like in the future with these two out-of-touch leaders. We need to be honest with herself. Hi, Poppy, says Christina. Is there any chance that you could host your show with Matt Vickers instead of JK in future?
No, we're a package deal. Absolutely not.
It's fine, I don't mind, I'm 60. Dave in Aberdeen, we like Morning Poppy and that other old git. 16-year-old getting the vote, unless they can vote on their bloody phones, it's going to make no difference whatsoever. That's a really good point, by the way. Yeah. How many 16-year-olds on election day will actually get out of the pit and off their screens and go and do it? And it's desperate to me. It looks desperate, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you can't take a selfie in the polling booth, so I think it's going to be of limited use to a lot of teenagers today.
Morning, Mike. He's got an overview.
Morning, guys. It's Mike here from West Wales. Keir Starmer's lost the plot. Why is it these politicians never listen to what's happening at the ground floor level? It's embarrassing. The welfare bill's horrendous. Youngsters don't want to work. And we've got a clown like that running the country. There's just no hope. And as I turn 66 this year, having had my pension age extended, a lot of my friends have passed away and they never made their pensionable age. What hope there is. It's total despair.
Do you know what? Just take a sec. Hear that? Worked all his life, probably 45, 50 years, right? For what? For a pension age that gets pushed back, to look at a country where you were supposed to work hard and pay your taxes and we'd look after you. To be stripped of that, you see people coming in. Jim Radcliffe isn't wrong. I'm not bothered about the people who don't like the truth. That man there and the man that was loading his van, that's the real people of this country. And if you get out and about and you say to people, forget the headlines in the mainstream media. The reality is, I feel, many people share it, others don't, opinions of what this democracy is about, that the very, very fact that the indigenous population are feeling so bitter and twisted is because they're right at the back of the bleeding queue, Pops.
No, exactly. It's about fairness. And there's been no social contract in this country for a long time. And I feel it too. Like, I'm of the younger generation. I think about, what's it going to be like when I get old? There's not going to be a pension waiting for me.
No.
I'm not delusional. There's not going to be any of the, healthcare waiting for me because the money doesn't add up. The sums don't add up. We've given it away to so many people. We've put off actually figuring out how to make money as a country. We used to be powerful. We used to be successful. And now we're just a bit of a joke. I find it really, really depressing to think about, but I still have hope that things can be fixed. I think
I'm
we
with you
can
on
turn
that. I'm
it
with you on
round.
that. There has to be the ability of the British population to understand, and I'm not just talking about talk. There has to be common sense, politically, morally. I'm really lucky to spend a lot of time with my father-in-law. He's been telling me this was happening for 20 years, and you'd go, what, really? He's right. People need to accept that there is a different way to do this. And I just think, in all, I'm going to speak to Isabel Oakeshott in a tick. If our Prime Minister is so offended by criticism by one of the most successful businessmen this country has ever seen, but backtracks and blusters and won't apologise for supporting 2 paedophile lovers in his government. That tells you everything you want. By a mile, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, exactly. And when they use these words like dignity and tolerance and common sense, it's like these.
Well, where is your common sense?
They've got none of it. They've got none of it. They're just as bad as the Tories were, if not worse. And I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of the same old scandals coming up time and time and time again, while the country slides off a cliff. We need change. Actual change.
Richie's in Grimsby. Good morning, Poppy, and your male co-host. I've forgotten his name. This votes for 16-year-olds could backfire on Labour. How many reform voters will have a 16-year-old who's willing to vote the same way because their parents are doing it? Karen Brazier, morning. Love the Pops and Jez show. Why would 16-year-olds vote Labour when they're stripping them of access to social media? Really interesting point. Sean, just imagine what Keith Stalin would do if the rape gangs were in the armed forces. I bet he would go hell for leather to prosecute them. He is a complete disgrace to this country. Alan K. If the top office in the UK government in general is riddled with child abusers, just imagine how that trickles down to our doctors' surgeries, schools and safety systems like foster care, etc. I find it truly alarming, says Alan from Hertfordshire. Right, we're going to a break. 6:36. Have we got a voice note to go to the break with? Andy's next, but Isabel Oakeshott on the way. Morning, Andy.
Morning, Jez. Morning, Pops. I watched PMQs yesterday, and what worries me, that even the likes of Ed Davies standing up now and giving him about these links to paedophile apologists and whatever. And even Diane Abbott the night before in the Commons spoke really well to a reporter. And I'm agreeing with them, and I think, I'd never agree with anything they say or do or anything. But then you've got Labour MPs that are standing in behind Starmer and supporting him. What does that actually tell you? Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. 22 minutes to 7 o'clock. We're live and exclusive across the UK to Talk. Breakfast, JK and Poppy. She's here, day 3. You all right?
Yeah.
We're going to head to the Middle East. Talk's international editor. So good to have her on every day. Isabel Oakeshott, good morning.
Good morning. Has it stopped raining yet?
Don't wind me up. Have you got your engagement ring yet?
Don't wind me up. Don't ask me that question in a week's time, and I think you might get a different answer.
I know why, but there we go. Well, fingers crossed for you. Listen, I wanted to get you on. We always love your views, and as do the listeners. Keir Starmer, overnight, appalled that Sir Jim Radcliffe, one of the most successful businessmen this country has ever seen, the owner of Ineos, would dare to say, and I quote, "Britain is being colonised by immigrants who are costing too much money." He added, "You can't have an economy with 9 million people on benefits and huge levels of immigrants coming in. It doesn't work." He's just speaking the truth, isn't he, Isabel?
He's absolutely right. Now, what was a bit unfortunate is that he muddied his message by getting his figures wrong. He got his facts and figures wrong. He kind of suggested that there'd been 12 million extra people since 2020, which is not actually the case. It's more like 12 million since 2000. And that's a shame because it gave the other side some ammunition to say he doesn't know what he's talking about. But he does know what he's talking about. And we all see it. We all feel it. The UK is effectively swamped by mass uncontrolled immigration. And I think anyone can make the case for skilled immigration, for people to come in and the brightest and the best to help our economy, but not the kind of immigration that we've got. I was just looking just now at the chances of asylum seekers. So let's say small boats asylum seekers. What are the chances that they are going to become net contributors to our economy? Now, I know from my own investigations that I would say the majority of asylum seekers waiting to come our way in Calais or Dunkirk can't speak a single sentence of English. So they've got a massive mountain to climb before they can actually contribute to our economy. And the reality is, although there's very little data on this, after about 8 years having been granted refugee status, half of refugees in the UK are still not contributing to the economy at all. How is that sustainable?
It's not sustainable, and I'm with the people who say that he's talking about it from a business point of view. But the reason there's such, I mean, the horror and the shock, and our Prime Minister so offended that somebody would come out and say that he's incapable and his judgment is wrong and that we have a real issue in terms of the finance of this country. And yet, and this is what sticks in the gut of so many, Isabel, of this pathetically bad judging Prime Minister, is that at the same time he's outraged by Sir Jim Radcliffe. How dare you insult immigrants? The man gets roasted again yesterday. We've had the Mandelson scandal. Now we have Matthew Doyle, pedo scandal number 2. The man who used to work for former advisor, who was fast-tracked to a peerage by Starmer, despite the fact that the PM knew that he'd supported a paedophile counsellor, Sean Morton, who, this is it, admitted indecent child image offences in 2017. Kemi stands up and says your government's full of pedo apologists. And who the hell can blame her? Because we've got a Prime Minister that will be offended if a businessman that is so successful would criticise him, and yet he makes bad call after appalling call again and again.
He does. I thought she was quite good, actually, in Prime Minister's questions yesterday. She's right. It was a bit of a moment when she said, you know, your administration is full of paedophile apologists. I mean, that is how it looks right now. And, you know, his judgment, time and again, his judgment is found wanting. So there is a huge row building over the potential appointment of a very high-flying career civil servant, Antonia Romeo, to the top civil service job in government, to be the cabinet secretary, Sir Keir Starmer's top Mandarin. And last night, one of her close colleagues and former bosses publicly came out and said, have you looked into this woman? Have you done your due diligence? Now, I happen to know that there are a lot of rumours about this woman, and not just rumours. There were plenty of, in the public domain, it is known that she was investigated for various things, and she was found not to have done anything wrong at all. But what I am really saying is that this is a very controversial figure in Whitehall. Yes, she's been investigated for bullying and abuse of expenses. No, she wasn't found to have done anything wrong. She's had an amazing career, but the fact remains she is very divisive. And when that top former civil servant came out last night and delivered that, there was a kind of drive-by shooting, you know, live on TV, saying, I'm trying to warn Downing Street that, you know, you maybe need to do a little bit more checking on this appointment. That is quite a moment. Now, it may well be that Starmer goes ahead and appoints her anyway. I don't know what her former colleague is getting at when he stands there on live television and says, this may not be a good idea, guys, but I do know that Keir Starmer can ill afford another complete and utter screw up with a very senior government appointment.
This is brilliant. This is Dame Antonia Romeo, who, as you said, that Starmer is considering making cabinet secretary as he blames another one of his closest, Chris Wormold, for the disastrous premiership so far. She was caught up in a bullying row. You're absolutely right to say that she wasn't found guilty. But if you're the Prime Minister of this country and you've recently been discovered that you fast-tracked 2 people with known links to paedophiles, one the most famous and vile paedophile in the world, the other who admitted it 10 years ago, you'd you'd sort of think, wouldn't you, if I'm going to make an appointment in future, they've got to be squeaky clean. His judgment, I don't even know the right word, is utter crap, isn't it? He doesn't have the political nous to make the right decision on, it seems, anything, Isabel.
That is how it seems. You know, you just are left wondering, is there no one else that he could appoint that wouldn't, you know, have all these enemies? And it may be very unfair. I do think that there's some sexism there. You know, she has done incredibly well. She will be a source of huge jealousy within Whitehall because she's got right to the top. She's had some amazing jobs. But I'm afraid also it is that slight feeling of no smoke without fire. And you do wonder, well, you know, given that there is that history, even though she was shown to have done nothing wrong, maybe at this point Keir Starmer might be wanting to be a little bit risk averse.
I haven't got long. Very quickly, your thoughts on 16-year-olds can vote that the Labour Party want to sneak through. 1.7 million people. This is at the same time as trying to ban them from buying alcohol-free lager. This is just another attempt to get votes. You've got kids. My 16-year-olds won't get out of bed to vote and don't even know the name of whatever party's in power, man.
Well, this is it. We knew they were going to try and do this. We knew they wanted to do this because they assume that will lead to a great flood of extra votes for the Labour Party. But I think they might actually be taken off guard on that one. I don't think it's quite as straightforward as that. I also think that probably most young teenagers will vote as their parents have kind of brainwashed them to do. I mean, I've done my best with my kids, brainwash them. Not sure how effective it is. But I do think they're probably open to quite a lot of persuasion by their parents. So does it actually end up being anything better for Labour?
Couldn't agree more. Now, we must have a bit of fun because it's all very serious. We've talked about Sir Jim Radcliffe. We've talked about pedo apologists. We've talked about the voting age 16. I've got two beautiful women in my life at 6:45. Poppy, say good morning to Isabel.
Morning, Isabel.
Good morning.
Poppy, we're going to have a laugh now, OK? Isabel, tell me this story in Rochdale, mate. This is brilliant.
So, I think, yeah.
Oh, here we go. We're playing it. This is Rochdale bin men basically having a massive scrap yesterday, beating the crap. Look at them. They're having a punch up. The bin's not me. What's going on, Isabel Oakeshott?
Well, when I saw this, I just thought, is that a joke? I mean, is that for real? I thought it's got to be fake, but it is actually real. That, according to Rochdale Council, is their bin man being subject to an unprovoked attack. Now, if you look closely at this is, you know, we've heard about blue on blue attacks. This is yellow on yellow, high vis on high vis. What I think we've got here are two groups of high vis people. One are the bin men, and the other, I think, may be builders. This is just me speculating.
Can I just say, for radio listeners, you're being very patient. There's a whole lot of men in the darker morning in Rochdale in high vis beating the bits off each other. That's the best way to describe it, isn't it? It's unbelievable. It's another day in Great Britain.
A proper mass scrap going on there. Just another day on the streets of Britain. Council says this is now in the hands of the police. They're sounding very defensive of their bin men. So who knows who was in the right, who was in the wrong. I just thought it was very funny, and someone has set it to quite funny music. So you'll find that online.
Yeah, the music's my old man's a dustman. He wears a dustman's hat. He wears gold-blimey trousers, and he lives in a council flat. A spokesman for Rochdale Borough Council said, "We are shocked and saddened by this unprovoked attack on staff. It was simply doing their jobs. Our waste operatives deserve respect and should not face any form of abuse while providing a public service. We will continue to assist GMP." who might or might not be under special measures, with their ongoing investigation and to provide support for the affected crew. Affected? They'll all wake up with black eyes. It's just like a big bloody smack up, isn't it? It's unbelievable. Isabel, I love having you on. Thank you for the Dame Antonio Romero point. I think that's very interesting. We'll keep an eye on who Starmer's going to have as his next cabinet secretary, somebody who apparently once was accused of bullying. And hopefully, just very quickly before you go, Valentine's Day on Saturday. I mean, this could be the beginning of the ring week. I mean, this could be the start. I mean, the next time we speak, you could have a right shiner, not on your eye like the binman, but on your finger, right?
Well, here's hoping, Jezza. And the thing is, he's now so afraid of you that when I said he doesn't like Valentine's Day, when I said I assume we're not doing anything for Valentine's Day, there was a long pause, and then he went, "We're going large." And I thought, because he's terrified of you.
Well, I think it's pathetic, and I think a woman with your talents and your beauty needs to step up to the plate. Isabel Oakeshott, thank you so much indeed. We love you. In the Middle East, Talks international editor, Poppy Coburn and JK on breakfast. Good morning, Mick.
Morning, Jeremy. Mick here from Lincolnshire. Up at 3 o'clock this morning, heading from Lincolnshire down to Redruth in Cornwall. 3.5 hours in, 4.5 to go. 16-year-olds voting. I'm ex-military, 24 years. So my mind is that a 16-year-old can vote for a government that can send people into armed conflict that they can't even go into themselves. Go figure. Great show, mate. Cheers.
Join me, Rob Jenrick, on the Jeremy Carr Breakfast Show on Talk.
There's a lot of harm happening in the country right now. People feel like the country's in a mess.
What does this say about our entire prison justice? The whole thing's a mess like so much else.
Well, it's a total shambles. Take away these human rights laws, which have got completely out of control now. You know, I do believe that economies can be fixed and you can get catch-up growth and ensure that when people come here, they're detained and deported swiftly.
Ring in, ask me any question. I'm here to answer.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 8 minutes to 7 o'clock, Thursday, the 12th of February. Jeremy Kyle with Poppy Coburn at Talk, the home of common sense and the home of alarm clock Brits. Thank you for tuning in. And I said this, and I've been saying it since last Friday, for making this station, right, after everything we've been through, more listened to for a speech radio station for longer than any other station in the United Kingdom. You're waking up to the news. Poppy's with me. Sir Jim Radcliffe, who's probably one of the most successful businessmen in this country, has criticised Starmer, criticised his country and said that as an economy with 9 million people on benefits and a flood or a colonisation, he called it, of immigrants, it cannot work. The left is absolutely outraged, but no word from the left about being outraged about our Prime Minister being caught out yesterday again for one of his mates, Matthew Doyle, being fast-tracked to a peerage, used to work for Keir, despite the fact the Prime Minister knew that he was friends with the pedo, on the back of Mandelson.
Yeah, exactly.
Unbelievable.
And, you know, when he's standing up there and going like, "Oh, this won't happen again, I promise change." It's like, it happened last week.
It happened last week with Mandelson, morning, Pete.
Well, Jez, here we go again, right, with this Jim Radcliffe's comments. You know, it seems that anyone that's not on the left, or the far left, or the ultra-far left, or supports a certain religious aspect in this country, we can't have say. We can't have a say at all. We can't put anything on social media because we get slung in jail. You know, and anyone famous that goes on and says anything that doesn't fit in with this horrible, awful left-wing agenda, they get this vilification on TV, all over the screens, all over the radio, everywhere. This has to stop.
It will stop if we have anything to do with it. Vilification, just come for me. I don't really care. Page 12 of the Mail, I know, Poppy, that you will talk about this far better than me. If you remember, the Supreme Court ruled on the definition of sex in the Equalities Act in April last year. it was all about trans women and female spaces and all that. Bridget Phillipson, who makes no secret of the fact that she's a die-hard Labourite and probably disagreed with that because they're all into that transgender case, admitted yesterday that trans women could still be allowed to keep using female toilets at work for years, right? Because she admitted that the forthcoming guidance did not cover workplaces.
Yeah, I mean, it's only the place that, you know, most people spend half their lives in. You know, it's completely useless. I mean, I think sometimes when you work in the media, you read too many of these horror stories and it kind of colours your experience of stuff. And the stuff that always I found really frightening was in public toilets, when there were lots of male-bodied people coming into women's toilets. It made me really frightened, actually, to go somewhere that I didn't trust the people within that space. You know, obviously trusted within my own office. But if you go to like a train station or something, you don't know who's going to be there, you don't know who's going to turn up, and you don't know if you can ask for help. And that's why the Supreme Court guidance was so important. But to now hear that, oh, well, actually, for most public buildings, because a lot of public buildings will be workplaces, nothing's going to change for several years, I think is completely unacceptable.
And you know what's really powerful is to hear you say that as a young woman in London, an independent woman who works and all that, because whenever we get engaged in this debate, everybody will throw, oh, you old sexist, you know, horrible misogynistic git, you don't know what you're talking about. I've said publicly, and you've just backed it up, I've got teenage daughters, and I do not want them going to a space where, I'm sorry if people don't like this, kiddies' ears, a man in a dress pulls his penis out to have a wee. I don't know any better way of describing it. That is not normal, right? And whenever you say, they go, oh, you're big, I'm not, right? I don't want those people in female spaces. And I want to ask you as a young woman, because what infuriates me is there's an awful lot of commentators, we've all worked with them over the years, who quite rightly, I think, have stuck up for women's rights and they've talked about the safety of women, and that's massively important. Why did they not agree with the safety of women in this instance?
Well,
why do they not agree or stick up for the safety of women when those women are attacked by illegal migrants? Complete silence.
Yeah, it's kind of a space where you're naturally going to be vulnerable. You literally got your pants down. You know, of course you're vulnerable in these spaces, and you know it gives you. I've actually had an experience where I've gone into a public toilet and I was washing my hands and I suddenly just did a double take because it was someone who I think was a male to female transgender person, and they were like kind of looming over me and they were a little bit too close, and you just go, you have that kind of jolt of fear because you're like, this isn't quite right. And it's exactly that kind of fear that you don't want to have, you know, when you've kind of let your guard down for a moment because you think you can, because you're in a space with other women. And, you know, you don't know whether or not this is someone that, like, thinks they have a right to be there, whether or not they're going to be a voyeurist. And it's like you know, they get the rock stuff for it. It's frightening and shocking. And that's why the Supreme Court said, look, we're going to be fair, we're going to give out this guidance, that's the end of the story, like, done. You know, it's taken out of the hands of politicians, we're doing it ourselves. To then find out that actually that doesn't apply in so many cases is so frustrating. It's so
And I think it's really powerful from a woman.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to ask you about it, because one gets accused of so much. It also smacks to me of the sorts of priorities of this government and the impossibly ridiculous side of they're going to allow that and not fight that.
Yeah.
And yet yesterday again, twice in 1 week, he's been seen actively appointing people with links to paedophiles.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense, does it?
Look, you know, people can do whatever they want. I'm very much a live and let live person. But when it interferes with someone else's rights, then that's when we have a problem. And you know, and this is a really serious issue. I don't think male-bodied people should go anywhere near the women's toilets or indeed women's changing rooms, which is another part of the discussion. No, obviously not. It's not safe. It's not appropriate. It doesn't make me feel comfortable. And you're completely right. Like, what is this Labour government actually standing for?
It's absolutely true. Poppy Coburn and I are away next week. That didn't sound right, did it?
Yeah, we're not away together.
She's making the point. I'm going home to the kids. She's going to a partner she's missed enormously. We'll be back in a week's time. I've got another 3 hours. We say thank you so much. She jumped in at the last minute. Well, she rang me up yesterday and said, let's be honest, without me, your show's on its backside. And back she comes. You've been amazing. Thank you very much indeed to Poppy. 0344 499 1000 is the telephone number you need for your views on today's news. You text 87222. Is Sir Jim Radcliffe right? Are we being colonised and overrun by immigrants, or is he out of order? Starmer, how many more apologists are going to be given jobs, and then he's going to go, things have got to change? And do you think, my friends, that it is right that 60-year-olds will get the vote. We'll start the next hour with the legend that is Kinsey Schofield as the royal problems continue to mount. But we'll go to the news at 7 and say good morning, Phil.
Hi, Jezza. Phil in Nottingham here. The punch-up with the bin men in Rochdale. I'll tell you what, matey, I think it's absolutely cracking. Good old British dust-up. No knives, no machetes involved. Just a bunch of blokes having a jolly good dust-up.
We reject, we reject. We reject, we reject.
Behind me is the highly controversial location for the proposed super embassy. Tuesday is the deadline. Yes, this would be the biggest embassy in Europe if approved, if Starmer bows down to Beijing, as these protesters are saying. Behind me you can see nobody wants this.
No repression at borders.
We know that we have to stand up to the abuses of China. And what worries me is that we have a government right now that seems to be scared of China.
What are you doing here at the protest? That's an interesting sign you've got there. Clearly you're not a fan of our Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Why is that?
It's kowtowing to the Chinese government, right? A dictator regime.
Robert Jenrick defected to Reform yesterday. He called the Conservative Party and Kemi Badenoch a leader with no backbone. She's obviously shown up here today and done a speech. It's kind of unprecedented to have that sort of flagrant support. What did you think about her speech and her backing this?
I think any party backing our cause, like going against the building of the embassy, I'd say we welcome them.
Why are you here today?
So I'm Tibetan and I'm here to oppose the Chinese mega embassy being built here. Unfortunately, we think the UK government might allow this to happen, and I think it sends the wrong message to people who have been oppressed by the Chinese government, who are still being continuously oppressed in free countries. There are lots of Chinese decisions which are being followed by Chinese police states.
Now, we know that there are plainclothes Chinese policemen potentially in the crowd, so a lot of them want to stay anonymous, which is very understandable. Why are you here today?
Because it's very simple. It's no mega embassy, and this is absolutely unacceptable because this is a very peak area, and I don't think any one of the country they will have choose one of the peak area, prime area, and make it to their one of the I think it's the biggest embassy in Europe. So this is
across the UK on DAB+. On YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, or welcome. It's the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show on Talk, of course. Excuse me, the home of common sense and the home of the alarm clock Brit. We welcome you to the show. Whatever your take on the day's news, your opinions matter on this show. 0344 499 1000 is the number for your calls and for those all-important voice notes. You can send your text to 87222. Get involved. That's what it's all about. This is not me reading the news to you. I want to know your take on it. You're waking up on Thursday, the 12th of February to... well, just the two-faced duplicity again of our Prime Minister. He was outraged last night after Sir Jim Radcliffe, the owner of one of the most successful businesses INEOS in the world, said that Britain has an economy that can't work because it's got 9 million people on benefits and is being colonised by illegal migrants. The left have got, oh, this is outrageous. He's entitled to his opinion, and Starmer demanded his apology, but then yesterday afternoon in the Commons, when faced with the proof that Matthew Doyle, another aide who's been given a peerage fast-track that Keir Starmer knew he had links to a paedophile fan, still gave him the job. So that's 2 in 1 week, Mandelson and Matthew Doyle. No apology for that. But he wants Sir Jim Radcliffe to apologise for saying something, and maybe his words didn't appeal to some people, but saying something from a business point of view that was true. You're also waking up to the news that Labour wants 16-year-olds to be able to vote. Cynically, I'm believing this is just a vain attempt to get anybody to vote for them at all, if you look at the opinion polls. But there we are. I love that on there. Infantocracy. Whoever came up with that deserves a prize. Good morning, Sean.
Morning, Jeremy. Sean from Grimsby here. See, there's a lot of outrage this morning over Jim Radcliffe saying that we're overrun with immigrants, which is true. But the biggest issue for me is the 9 million people on benefits. You know, that is completely unsustainable. Even I know it as a humble lorry driver. Society is about contribution, okay? Whatever you do, you have to contribute something and do something. Because when we stop contributing, then we don't have a society left. We cannot continue on the path of the minority of people paying taxes for the majority of people who are on benefits and work in the public sector. I mean, this is just common sense, mate. And what's wrong with these people? Can't they see it? Good God. Great show, Jeremy. Keep it up, mate.
Good man. Thank you very much indeed. And you can be involved like him. As I said, 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. Do I really have to do this? We have some breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure this will change your day. The UK economy grew by 0.1% between October and December last year. But I don't want to be cynical. Petrol's still expensive, your energy costs are going through the roof, the food on your table's much more than it was before, and we've got no money, and we're screwed. And our government believes it's a good idea to give people who like paedophiles jobs. But without wanting to put it badly, well done to all of those economists. Don't understand what it means. Right, on the way, the legend that comes on every day now, because this story will not go away. It's on the front of every newspaper again. The royal connections and the Epstein saga. A very good morning to Kinsey Schofield, live in Los Angeles. Good morning.
I'll miss you next week, JK.
Well, are you taking the week off as well? Because there are rumours that you're thinking of taking the week off, and then, of course, all these rumours start circulating.
The Poppy, JK and Kinsey weekend, I live for that. I'm there.
There you go. Listen, in the Epstein files, it talked about a British Prime Minister, Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. I'm not getting involved in that sort of threesome talk, Schofield.
No,
what sort of language are you coming up with?
No, we're more like the Kumbaya crew, okay? None of that.
Right, listen, oh, God, it goes on again. Overnight, Andrew is being probed by criminal prosecutors over the Epstein scandal. You might have read or seen the Attorney General, Bondi, being attacked by Democratic senators in America going, why haven't you prosecuted the ex-Prince Andrew? No message from Trump on this. This is not going anywhere. I mean, this story continues to dominate. It's on the front of the Sun as well, about how the Queen, Philip and Charles loaned him $12 million to pay off Giuffre. Hasn't paid back a penny.
I mean, that is the hardest headline for me to digest this morning. Learning that King Charles loaned, is a silly word to use, Andrew money to settle this claim from Virginia is deeply troubling, especially based on the conversations we've had over the last week, where I've been defending him relentlessly. At this point, it's very difficult to argue that the king was completely unaware of Andrew's activities, or to maintain that he isn't at all connected to what's going on based on this new information. Even if the intention was to help a family member, facilitating a payoff to, there's no other way to translate it other than to silence an alleged victim. It's not a great look, and it raises real questions about judgment, accountability, and the optics of protecting a relative at the expense of transparency and justice.
It's interesting. I couldn't agree more. I read that this morning and my jaw dropped, because, of course, in the last few days when you and I and Andrew Loney have talked about this, people have started to say, well, what the hell did the Queen think the money was for? We know it was her favourite son. Does some of the blame sadly lie with her? Turns out that Philip and Charles were part of this. I don't know why you'd loan 12 million quid to a bloke who's skint. And it is absolutely right to say that now our now king is up to his eyes in it, because there is every reason for people to say you provided money to pay off a victim who'd been sexually abused, trafficked, whatever you want to call it, by the world's most vilest paedophile, and your brother used that money to try and stave off probing prosecution or whatever. And I go back, and I'll keep going back to this. I don't think the royal family has ever been mired in such a position. I think the king is in real trouble over this. I really do.
I think you're right, unfortunately. And I mean, I will say, I talked to Tom Bauer yesterday, who wrote Rebel Prince, and Tom Bauer is, as you know, heavily involved in writing about the British royal family. And he agreed with me that Charles loathed Andrew growing up, that he probably wouldn't know what his agenda looked like. They didn't have a lot in common. They didn't speak very often voluntarily. But here we have tangible proof that, I mean, nobody hands over such a significant amount of money without knowing why. You know, I mean, I'm sure when there was a strategy session going on, the king, Prince Charles at the time, said specifically, why do you need this sum of money? And it was explained to him, and he handed it over. And, you know, as we sit back and think along those lines and we paint that picture in our heads, it thoroughly disappoints us.
I couldn't agree more. And we had a conversation, you and I started this on Wednesday, and the traction online was extraordinary. I will absolutely nail my colours to the mast now, and I am a royalist. I think the king might well find himself in a position where the only way to save his precious monarchy is to step aside and abdicate. And you said something yesterday that almost everybody went, God, I hadn't thought of that. And you said, and I'll repeat it today, that you felt there was a good chance that he might well use his illness to step aside as he's mired on this, which would give William and Kate the chance, who weren't, of course, to start with a clean slate. That, constitutionally, when I look back to 1937 and Wallace Simpson, that is absolutely huge if that happens. Huge.
But do we really think that he would do it? He's waited his entire life for this job. He was impatiently waited his entire life for this job. And I feel like it means the entire world to him. And I guess, to go back to what you said to me earlier in the week, or maybe it was even last week, I think I need to hear from him. I think I need to hear from him. I think that might change my heart. But right now, I'm very uncomfortable and almost, to be honest with you, embarrassed that I've spent the last few weeks defending him specifically because, you know, I have egg on my face today.
I think there's many, and I'd include you and I on this massively, who are die-hard royalists who quite rightly, I think, have grown up and believed in the system. And I've understood that he wants to streamline it. But I'm like you. You just said, I'm not sure if he'd do it because he's spent his life growing up knowing this was his destiny. I would hope in his heart that the longevity or even the chance for the monarchy to survive, and I think it's that serious, will be based in his head, and he'll know it's the right decision. I'm getting to the point where this is so murky. I mean, overnight, the other thing, Andrew, quite interesting, is going to be probed by criminal prosecutors. I've said it until I'm blue in the face this week. If Peter Mandelson traded secrets with Epstein, he will go to jail. If the ex-Duke of York did the same as a trade envoy, and I don't think lukewarm comments like, we'll talk to the police from the palace, he should face exactly the same charges and the same fate. Because the British public and the public across the world, they've moved on from that entitlement. And that's the big problem the royal family have. And if they hide him or they pretend this isn't going to happen, I don't know, as a royalist, what the hell will come next. Genuinely mean that.
Well, I am smiling at you because I don't know if you've seen the Mandelson emails between Jeffrey Epstein and Peter when Fergie gets caught in the cash for access scandal. But Mandelson specifically says in an email to Jeffrey Epstein that if Andrew had been elected to anything, he'd have to resign, adding that Ferguson seems so desperate about the cash for access. And the two of them, Peter Mandelson and Jeffrey Epstein, are actually strategizing how to help Sarah Ferguson get out of this scandal, saying that maybe she should admit she has, and there is no proof of this. I think that they're just, strategizing. Epstein says maybe she should say she has medication abuse problems and she needs to go into rehab. I mean, they're just, it's constant scheming. It's constant covering up for each other, to your point. And, we want accountability. You know, these people are in leadership roles. These people are supposed to be held to higher standards, and their behavior is vulgar. Their behavior is embarrassing, and it's not a reflection of who we are. And these are people, elected officials, and even royalty that are supposed to represent us.
I couldn't agree more, and I think for both of us there's real frustration, there's real anger. I just want to ask you two things, and I ask you every day as this story unfolds. Do you think the King will abdicate over this?
I mean, I don't think that Keir Starmer will. I don't think that the King will. I think that they are very stubborn and that their egos would not let them, if I'm being honest with you.
Well, I think the people across the world might demand it. And more than anything, let me ask you this, and so grateful for you hanging on this morning. Do you think the ex-Duke of York will end up behind prison bars? Because I am increasingly beginning to believe he will.
I think that that's more likely than seeing a resignation from either one of those men.
Love having you on. Thank you for staying up late as well. The legend that is Kinsey Schofield, live and exclusive from LA. And this is just a daily story. It's all over front of the Sun. Credit card. Queen, Philip and Charles loaned Andrew $12 million to pay off Virginia Frey. I'm as guilty, Kinsey said. I've sat here and I've said this was the Queen, I loved the Queen, blah, blah, blah. Turns out Charles knew about the 12 million quid. What, you're going to hand over 12 large, are you? And not ask what it's for? How ridiculous. 7:15. The voice is going. 0344, I know you're happy. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. So much in the news. If you're waking up, it's about Starmer and Radcliffe and 16-year-olds getting the vote and pedo apologists, and how good to have on the former Downing Street director next of communications. My God, there's a vacancy right now there, isn't there? Guta Hari, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm very well. I won't be offering my services to Keir Starmer, rest assured.
Breaking news on Talk. Guta Hari refuses the chance to go back to Downing Street and somehow get through this crisis, or, well, today's crisis. Guta, great to have you on, my friend. The news cycle that's been happening over the last few weeks, I mean, it sounds a terrible thing to say, but it's just, there's too much to cover. Let's start, if we can, with Jim Radcliffe last night, one of Britain's most successful, the world's most successful businessman, behind Ineos, of course, has come out and said that Britain as a business it's not sustainable. We've got 9 million people on benefits and huge levels of immigration coming in, and he's questioned whether that's sustainable, whether Starmer's the right person. But of course, the left they're completely outraged. He used the word colonisation. This is absolutely outrageous, and yet I get the distinct feeling that the silent majority, well, certainly everybody on this show this morning, completely agrees with him. Where do you stand?
Well, I might not use the word colonise myself, but he's absolutely 100% right to point out that 9 million people are on benefits or on pensions, economically inactive, and therefore being paid for by everybody else. And that, as I see it, creates a gap and a draw for people who are perhaps harder working, with a better work ethic, and frankly with better skills than a lot of people we've unfortunately raised in this country, to come here and do those jobs that they refuse to or are unable to do. And so he's pointing out what the big problem is. And a great word of advice to Keir Starmer is, he says, sometimes when you're in leadership roles, he's talking about Manchester United here, you have to do things that are unpopular for a while in order to make things better in the long term. And the problem with Keir Starmer, he's bottled all the big decisions that would address welfare, and his proposals to address the other side of the coin, sort of migration into Britain, are really not having much of an impact.
No, they're not, and he hasn't got. I've said it every day. The DNA, I believe, the political nous, just the sense to do anything. He's a robotic lawyer, but you were a director of communications. Explain this to me. We had all of this Mandelson debacle. You know, we had. You know, I didn't know, and then the cabinet went silent, and they all rode in behind him. So they're all now complicit. And then he came out fighting, and he said it's going to change. And then yesterday we had Matthew Doyle, another person who worked for him, former advisor, who was fast-tracked to a peerage, despite the fact it turned out that Starmer knew that he was very close to Sean Morton, a paedophile counsellor who admitted in 2017 indecent child image offences. Bennock jumps up and calls his government full of pedo apologists, which I can't disagree with. But I just want to ask you, genuinely, as an ex-director of communications, who the hell is that? Does this man not listen to anybody? Does he understand at all about look, about optics? Because to me, he lurches from one to the next, appalling decisions. And yet he gets angry about Jim Jim Radcliffe is not angry about the girls that were raped in Rotherham and the North that won't have an inquiry into the grooming gangs. It doesn't make any sense to me. Is he clueless or is his team clueless?
I think he's pretty clueless. And incidentally, since you mentioned Jim Radcliffe again, he says today that he finds it deeply offensive that the word colonised was used. But who used the word Britain will become, or the words Britain will become an island of strangers? None other than Keir Starmer. So one week he tells us Britain is in danger of becoming an island of strangers. Then somebody points out, you know, that sounds very much like Enoch Powell. And then something flicks in his brain and he thinks, oh yeah, Enoch Powell bad, don't like Enoch Powell. Then he says, I really regret saying that. The words came out of his own mouth. This is the weird thing. And do you know what I think has happened here? I think this is a man who's never grown up from being the cab rank barrister who takes a brief and he says, what's in this brief? Oh, this brief asks you to go out there and say that, you know, Britain is an island of strangers. And the following week, he goes to his clerk and he says, what am I arguing for today for a vast amount of money? And he says, oh, this brief tells you that that is deeply offensive kind of language. He says, that's fine, I can do that just as well as I did last week. And he doesn't join the dots. And the rest of us look and think, maybe that works for you as a barrister. Maybe that's how you earn tons of money and live in a great big house in Islington, but it's not what we want of a prime minister. We want someone who joins the dots, who sees a screaming headline on the front page of one of our best newspapers telling him about Matthew Doyle and his support for a man who at that stage was already, you know, well known and well advanced with the legal process for being downloading pictures of paedophile stuff. He's not actually plugged into this world, and he needs to be, because he's our prime minister, for better or worse.
It's almost like political suicide. I mean, I don't know the tentacles that Mandelson had over the government. You saw those tweets the other day to Wes Streeting. Presumably he's got control beyond what any of us really understand. But, you know, even me, I mean, anybody with a brain cell would go, right, well, we're not going to fast-track him because we've been told that 8 years ago, the man that he is purporting to say is innocent admitted downloading children's pictures. Let's not go near that. Doesn't seem to happen. And I've said for a long time, I just don't think it's in his DNA. I don't think he is a politician. I don't think he feels it. I don't think there is... I mean, what is it? His tweet yesterday said about Jim Radcliffe: offensive and wrong. Britain is a proud, tolerant and diverse country. Jim Radcliffe should apologise. I don't tweet, but I tweet back. Ask the silent majority, and they will probably tell you that somebody like Radcliffe maybe not did use the right words, but he's absolutely spot on, but he won't hear the other side, Starmer. And you said something as well that I thought was really interesting about, you know, how he sort of messes around and doesn't ever... I don't think he's proactive. I don't think there was a plan. I don't think that here there is a plan in his head.
No, there isn't. And there's a brilliant piece by Tim Shipman that's due to be published in the New Statesman this week, that where he's talked to a whole load of people who've worked with Keir Starmer for years, and they say that he's not even intellectually curious. He doesn't have that, I wonder why this is happening and what should I do about it? It's a fascinating sort of insight, but we can kind of see that for ourselves in just how he's acting. And for me, when Jim Radcliffe says, as a successful businessman, that we cannot sustain where we are as the UK PLC, if you want, for these purposes, if we are carrying 9 million people, you know, some of them deserve their pensions, they've paid into it, but 9 million people economically inactive, it's like a bunch of us going down to the pub and only half the people are actually buying. That's not a recipe for a good time in the pub, and it's not sustainable for the UK. If we have 1 million young people, you know, who are at the peak of their physical strength and largely mental strength, who are not in education, employment, nor training of any sort, and we are paying them benefits. So you actually invest in yourself. You aim to go to university, you end up with 50,000 in debts. You actually sign on because you've got anxiety at the age of 19, and we will give you up to about £20,000 to sort of sit at home, you know, nursing your anxiety. I don't think that's a good thing for young people. It's not a good thing for the UK. And if we spend so much money on welfare, then we don't have money to protect ourselves from Putin, to defend the streets, to actually invest in infrastructure. And in my case, I'd like to take the burden off some of those students who are actually investing in the skills they need for a future that's going to get higher and higher in terms of skill level.
Completely agree. Got a voice note which sums this up perfectly. Dan, good morning.
Morning, Jeremy. It's Dan from Kent. So Keir Starmer thinks we're a proud, tolerant and diverse country. We may have been decades ago. That's before he was deemed as racist or far right for putting an English flag up. That's before illegal immigration has totally changed the face of our country. When you read every day young girls being raped, sexually abused, that's before hard-working Brits are just paying for those that want to sit about at home on benefits. That doesn't make me proud. I'm out working all week, away from home, don't see my family till the weekend. But for what? To pay for those that want to come to our country, not give anything, not be proud of who we are. My tolerance is running thin.
I completely agree with you, Gooter, don't you?
Yes, it's that business of going to the pub. You know, I love occasionally to sort of buy around for everyone and feel like, you know, the most popular guy in the pub. But you can't do that day after day after day. Go to the pub and, you know, the people picking up the tab get smaller and smaller and the people drinking are getting to be a bigger and bigger crowd. I think it's basic economics, it's basic numeracy, and there is no prospect at all under Keir Starmer of addressing that. He's bottled the few modest attempts that his government has had at reforming welfare, and therefore there's no money, and therefore his own backbenchers are going to be frustrated with him. And the only interesting question is, when they topple him, which, you know, I still think they will pretty soon, do we get somebody who's got a bit more backbone, who will attempt to do those things and tell us a story and articulate where he wants to take the UK? Or do we go for someone who's even more indulgent of those woke voices on the Labour backbenchers and those lefty voices who want to spend even more money produced by a declining pool of people?
Couldn't agree more. Just finally, before we let you go, and it's great to have you on, the other thing Labour are trying to get through today is to allow 16-year-olds to vote. This will create another 1.7 million electorate. The Tories saying the PM doesn't know what an adult is, after at the same time as allowing them to vote, trying to ban them from buying alcohol-free beer, which is just about sums up. I mean, this is a cynical vote grab, isn't it? 16. So anybody who's nearly 13 right now, who really doesn't give a toss or know anything about politics, could pick the next government.
It's I hesitate to sort of question the ability of a 16-year-old to vote, because I've got one in this house and she's far more intelligent than I am. But she doesn't have to pay taxes.
No.
She doesn't have to deal personally with the consequences of voting for somebody who is economically illiterate. And I think that is a sort of relevant consideration. And I would also, you know, just warn Keir Starmer, careful what you wish for, because those some 16-year-olds are actually still dreaming, as he is in his 60s, of a world where money grows on trees and you just decide how to spend it every day to buy off rebellions on your backbenches. There are a lot of very sharp, hard-headed young people now who are looking at the way Britain is going, and they see what, you know, Radcliffe sees. They are worried about, you know, the job prospects for them and the taxation levels that will hit them when and if they finish university. And so they are not necessarily going to vote for a party like Labour or the Greens that has gone, you know, way left of Labour now. They may well be people who want to go for, you know, the other side, and quite far the other side towards Nigel Farage and reform. I think he would tell you that he's very popular with young men in particular.
Really good to have you on, Guto. I hope you come again soon. Thank you so much indeed. Former Downing Street Communications Director, Guto Harry, there on Talk Breakfast 7:27. I just want to read this. Loads of them are doing. Kaz in Hearts. This is absolutely brilliant. Morning, Jez. Kids voting? No bloody chance. My daughter came downstairs last night and said, Mum, I think I'm going to vote for the Greens. And for just a second, said Kaz in Hearts, I thought I might make her homeless. Morning, Paula.
Morning, Jeremy. It's Paula in Liverpool. I feel like I'm in some sort of dystopian version of The Emperor's New Clothes at the minute. You've got senior business people in this country who are racist for telling the truth, for saying that we are being overrun and we cannot afford it. It's nothing to do with racism. It wouldn't matter where these people were coming from. There are too many coming into this country and we cannot afford it. We cannot afford to support them. When is somebody going to say the emperor's not wearing any clothes? Thanks, Paula in Liverpool.
Tell you what they're hiding today, mainstream media. The sex of the person who has killed 10 people and injured 25 others in a mass shooting at a school in Canada today. He is a boy who identifies as if he's a girl, but he's still a boy. This is a male crime. But you wouldn't know that from watching the BBC, ITV, Sky News, or reading their websites today. Nope, most of the newspapers as well. They're still talking about a female killer.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Just gone 7:30. We're live across the United Kingdom tour. Breakfast, the home of common sense and the home of hard-working alarm clock Brits. Thank you for making this, by the way, the radio station that is listened to longer than any other radio station in the United Kingdom. Fact, 7:31, 0344 499 1000 for those messages. Text as well, 87222. Chris, Jez, what the hell's going on? Really, what's going on? A political party in this country wants men using women's toilets. Nothing is being done about rape gang inquiries. And then you hear paedophile apologists are in top positions. I can't have it anymore. Tony says, hi, Nick. Right, brilliant. So this guy thinks he sent this to another radio station, which is fantastic. Tony, Starmer should apologise for his association with paedophile apologists. I absolutely agree with you, Dave. Hello to Paul Griffin. Paul says, I'm in Avon. Oh, lovely. How does I know? The very fact that Starmer thinks he can tell Jim to apologise says all that you need to know. Chris, what's this? Oh, God. Jess Phillips saying trans can still use a female toilet. So what about the male pervert who, when caught in a woman's place, says he is trans? This whole thing disgusts me. Loads of opinions. John, this is the should 16-year-olds be allowed to vote? Yes, say Labour. John says most 16-year-olds think the economy is something they catch off their mates in PE and their mums still have to sign the school trip for. Maybe Starmer should hold off letting them decide who runs this bloody country. And Kitty, I love that name. Regarding the votes for 16-year-olds, we all know which demographic of the most children have the most children and that their votes are taken off them and harvested for Labour. That's a very, very true point. Good morning to Carl.
Hi, Jeremy. Carl here from Coventry. I'm just so disheartened. I mean, I've still got the fake bubbly on ice. I haven't been able to pop it yet because the moron's still in the job. Well, how long for? We don't know. But better the devil you know anyway. But the left, come on. The left wing, what's happening? What's happening to this country? I mean, if this was the right wing doing what the left wing's doing, the BBC would have it all. And that's what I blame. BBC, I mean, a lot of people, and I know a lot of people, if it's not on the BBC, it's not the truth. And they know that. The government know that. And that's why they keep giving them the licence and they suck up to each another, you know, boys club and all that. Yeah, and I mean, you've got a businessman, our most successful businessman. He's telling us how bad it is. I mean, he's not an idiot. I really think Labour and the left are trying to completely destroy this country and leave nothing of it. They hate us. They hate us.
Interesting. A very good morning to the former government advisor, my mate, the legend, James Price, is back. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, and I'm very nervous that you're going to be mean about lovely Mummy Price's curtains in my background again, but I'm sure you'll be kind.
There he is in a tank top in front of the shower curtain on a Thursday morning. JP, jeez. We haven't got long today, and I'd love to have longer, but mate, I'm so outraged by Jim Radcliffe saying this country is colonised, Keir Starmer, but I don't want to really answer questions about my mates who are paedophile lovers getting fast-tracked peerages. I just don't see that that's as important. He doesn't get it right ever, does he, man?
I'm absolutely disgusted by what Jim Radcliffe said. He said, I like Keir Starmer, he's a good man. I thought this chap had decent judgment. I expected better of him.
What do you make? I mean, he's still hanging on. He's still hanging on.
I think he'll hang on until the May elections, right? Why would you get rid of him now, install one of these other cretins, and then have them have to carry the can for Labour taking a ridiculously bad election results at the May local elections? So I think he'll hold on until then. But it doesn't change the fact that Jim Radcliffe is fundamentally right about what he said. Okay, he got the numbers a little bit wrong, but where does the word colonise come from? It's Roman colonia. What did the Romans do? They would transplant Roman citizens into local areas that had been recently conquered, so use them as a reserve of manpower in fighting if emergencies broke out, and to spread the Roman language of Latin and Roman laws and Roman customs. And what happened to all those places where they spread those colonia? They eventually became Romanized and part of the empire. You can make your own conclusions to what I'm getting at there.
Absolutely. Far more intelligent than me. Priorities. I mean, you know, we had Mandelson last week. I'm going to change. The Matthew Doyle thing. This is what I was just asking Guto. I'll ask you. I don't... As an ex-advisor, you've worked in the higher echelons of government. Does nobody tell this? This word I'm not allowed to use. It might not be a good idea because he's got links to a pedo. Does nobody tell that to Starmer, or do they say it to him and he's so stupid and so blind and incompetent that he ignores them?
It is absolutely extraordinary, isn't it? Of all the U-turns that this rancid little Labour government have made in the last 18 months since they've taken over, all the pledges they've made that they've gone back on, all the lies that they've told, and the only consistent things they seem to be pushing on are trying to kill Granny, killing babies up to seconds before they're allowed to be born, giving away sovereign British territory, and supporting their friends who happen to also be friends with nonces. It doesn't seem like a particularly great record for 18 months in government, but what do I know? I'm only a former advisor to them. This stuff is extraordinary, and I think it does come from the fact that, as Gita Harry was saying before, Starmer totally intellectually uncurious about these things, never wondered any of this stuff. They get into government and they ask the civil servants, all right, well, what do we do now? To which the civil servants technically said, that's what you're meant to tell us. But of course, we actually know the civil servants very happy with that answer and they can carry on running everything themselves. But I think even the civil service are looking and saying, really? Your priority, giving peerages and ambassadorships to people who are, let's put it, as Madeline Grant did in The Spectator this week, nonce adjacent.
Nonce adjacent. Oh, that's my phrase of the morning. No, oh, hold on, we've got some breaking news. You can respond to this, where my little thing's going to come up. Breaking news on Talk Breakfast. The government this morning have come out all guns blazing, probably the one way to describe that, by pledging a further 500 million of your hard-earned money to Ukrainian defences. Your response to that, JP?
Well, I mean, I think we should be in the business of backing democracies against evil dictators who invade countries. But where is the long-term plan about any of this? It doesn't seem to me that there is one. It was a few months ago that Starmer was coming out and saying, well, we'll put British troops along with the French troops on the front line of this. How many troops can we actually put out? We haven't got any money because the economy has been so badly managed. I think the stats came out this morning that the overall economy grew by 0.1%, which means given the increase of our population because of all the immigration people coming in, is actually a per capita, meaning per person, decrease. So a kind of personal recession continues. So we haven't got any money to actually put any soldiers out in the field. Are we going to do what Tony Blair did and send brave British soldiers into battle without the right equipment? So they keep being killed? Are we going to trip the wire and end up in World War III against Russia? Do I think that Keir Starmer has what it takes to go and negotiate with someone like Vladimir Putin? I'd like to think so. I'd certainly back him if he tried, but I don't think this is the guy we want debating for us on the world stage, just as he's not the guy to be leading the country through all these other challenges. He's got to go, but I'm going to warn you, just to ruin everyone's morning, whoever comes in after Starmer from these little twerps in the cabinet will be more left-wing and therefore, by definition, will be even worse for the country. So we're not out of the woods by any means yet.
Welcome to Depression FM, live across the United Kingdom. Mate, it's so good to have you back. You're the best by a mile. And can you just tell Mummy P that my personal curtain maker will be round at 10:30 this morning for a change in the house. But God bless you, Mrs. P. Thank you for coming on. 20 to 8. This is Talk. Phil, good morning.
Good morning, Jeremy. This is Phil from Hearts. This Epstein scandal and his Epstein files, it's like a massive join-the-dot puzzle, isn't it? Every day another dot gets added to the puzzle. I can't wait to see what the final picture is.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. 20 to 8. In a minute, the author of, entitled The Fall of the Duke and Duchess of York's Household, Andrew Loney, here in just a tick. Firstly, Jane Knock. Morning, Jez. Of course we are colonised. What will make that awful Sir Cardboard Starmer go far away? Any ideas? No, mate, we're all hanging on. Phil in Coventry. 9 million on benefits. Labour won the last election with just over 9 million votes. Gav, morning, Jez. Jim Radcliffe, 100% right. The UK culture is changing. I want the word Easter back on Easter eggs in our shop. Does it not say Easter eggs? We're not going into that now, are we? Jesus. Ian McDonald, morning, Jez. Great show. Sir Jim may not be right factually, but he's right in the fact that there needs to be some unpopular and courageous decisions to start to correct the balance and to start to protect the people of the United Kingdom, says Ian in Liverpool. Howard, good morning. There's only one demographic who will benefit from lowering the voting age, and they will vote for who they're told to. And couple that with removing the two-child cap, and you can see where we are headed. Hi, Poppy and Jez. God, she better know, okay. I believe Sir Jim is correct. The population rise in this country as I go around this country, you can see it. 10 years ago was nothing at all like it is today. John Peters, hi Jez. I can now see Bridget Phillipson saying that trans toilets don't apply to workspaces. So what was the use of taking the NHS to court over safe sex places? There's so many of these, and I'm so absolutely aware that I should do the right thing and read them out. Sorry, we will get Andrew Lowney. We're just having a few technical problems getting him. Morning, JK. 3 cheers for Jim Radcliffe. So no Starmer. He does not have to apologise for saying that what we all think. And Starmer once again putting illegal migrants front and centre. The diversity crap he keeps spouting. I'm sick of it, says Margaret in Birmingham. 17 minutes to 8. A very good morning to a man who quite literally sets this station alight. Andrew Loney, how are you?
Very well, thanks. Sorry about the technical problems.
No problems, it's just sound at the moment, but Andrew, it's fine to have you on. This whole debacle that is engulfing the royal family shows absolutely no sign of going anywhere. Today, on the front of the Sun newspaper, a royal exclusive that simply shouts out what I think could literally lead to major change. Credit, Cad Andrew. The Queen, Philip and Charles loaned Andy 12 million to pay off Virginia Giuffre, and he hasn't paid back a penny. But Andrew Loney, the point is this: King Charles is now completely up to his neck in it, isn't he?
Yes, he is. I mean, I think, we need to see how he behaves in the next few days. But he's claiming he's going to cooperate with the police. But I know that he, in fact, is telling protection officers not to talk to anyone. So it's quite the opposite of what he's saying in public. And I do worry that this is all just performative. It's all sort of smoke and mirrors, and that there's no real commitment to being honest about how much the royal family knew about Andrew and what they did about it. This is a problem that they've known about for years. And they've tried to sort of brush it off the carpet. And I'm slightly concerned that they're at the sort of crossroads now. Do they actually deal with this, or do they continue to sort of stick their head in the sand?
I don't think the British people, I'm afraid, and I'm a royalist, will allow them to stick their head in the sand. For me, when I woke up and I read this, you and I, Kinsey as well, have been questioning over the last couple of weeks not the legacy of a woman we all adore, but, the Queen, 12 million's 12 million. This was on her. But this morning's exclusive, Andrew says, Philip also no longer with us, King Charles was part of that money. You do not loan that unless you ask what that's for. I completely agree with you. You don't loan 12 million quid unless you ask what it's for, even if you are the future king. I honestly believe he's going to have to abdicate. I genuinely do.
Well, I mean, he certainly knew about it. The fact is that there was surveillance of Andrew, there could have been PPO reports. So he's been aware of the problem, and I just don't understand why he hasn't dealt with it earlier.
Criminal prosecutors overnight admitting that they're looking at Andrew leaks. I meant to ask you this yesterday. I believe Mandelson will go down for what looks like trading secrets whilst he was a cabinet minister. The vultures seem to be circling around Andrew. Last night, a Democratic senator attacked the Attorney General Pam Bondi and said, why haven't you started? It might seem that it's all on him, but I can't see him getting out of this.
Well, I mean, exactly. If they investigate Mandelson, they have to investigate Andrew. I think a simple thing could be that he actually has to address a parliamentary committee. He doesn't have to go and talk to the Senate, but he could certainly be compelled to give evidence here. And I'm not sure why that hasn't happened. And indeed, Sarah Ferguson should be asked to give evidence. I mean, she was party to this. She was often staying at Epstein's homes. There are more numbers for her in Epstein's black book than his. So I don't know why she's got off scot-free so far.
She apparently overnight, we've discovered, asked Epstein for bankruptcy advice whilst he was in jail for child trafficking. That's what the emails suggest.
Yes, no, I mean, they're very close to Epstein. They didn't really care what he'd been doing as long as he was bailing them out. But I do think there's some big questions about Sarah Ferguson and her abuse of her charities. So I think there's a lot more still to be discovered about these two.
It's interesting talking to you on a daily basis because as the country becomes more and more open-mouthed and shocked, you're like this calm sort of voice because, of course, you've been saying this, Andrew, and a couple of people asked me to ask you this today. When you first made these allegations, I said yesterday you were pilloried. What sort of pressure was brought on you?
I mean, things were cancelled. There was briefing against me. I had death threats, a whole series of things. Stories were spread that I was a paedophile myself. I mean, people didn't want to believe it.
Is it with a heavy heart now that you're being proven right?
Yes. Well, I mean, I think, I was shocked when I discovered that the Queen had protected Andrew. I don't want an abdication. I want the monarchy to survive. I want it to be strong. But I do think that they don't seem to have realised how serious this is and what a difficult position they're now in.
How would you, if you were advising King Charles, how would you tell him he can save the monarchy? What should he do?
Well, he needs to clean up the stables. He needs to actually say exactly what happened, how much they knew, what they did, and say that, we will never allow this to happen before. We're going to be much more transparent in all our dealings. We're going to have a royal register. We want to be not part of the freedom of we want the exemptions on the Freedom of Information Act removed. We want proper parliamentary scrutiny. And we will tell you that we will pay our capital gains and our inheritance tax. And we will try and set an example rather than have our noses in the trough.
And presumably, Kinsey made a good point. She said, he might refuse to abdicate because he spent 70 years waiting for this moment. But I would hope that if it does engulf him, that he cares enough about the monarchy to sweep that stable clean, as you said, and let William and Kate, who you said yesterday aren't implicated in this, they can start afresh, right?
Absolutely. I think there can be a completely clean broom if they were to come in. They're not associated with it at all. But I think, clearly Charles has been trying to hide this problem for a long time rather than deal with it. And I'm afraid the chickens have come home to roost.
You genuinely think our king has been hiding the Andrew problem?
Absolutely. I know it's the case. They had surveillance reports on Andrew. There were PPOs reporting. He knew exactly what was going on. And they just thought they could get away with it if the public didn't know. And I think that's why they now need to come clean about it and get some trust back, because at the moment the British public don't trust them.
And I think that's the point. There's always been many in this country who have seen the royal family along the lines of they're entitled. If they don't come clean with this, they will be rightly accused of using that entitlement, their position, whatever, to avoid, and you said it brilliantly, if Mandelson is being investigated, then the ex-Prince Andrew needs to be investigated. They can't be seen to be treated differently, can they, Andrew?
No, absolutely. And I've been saying this for a long time. No one is above the law, including members of the royal family. And I think, if Charles really does want to cooperate with the police, then he does need to give the police the internal correspondence. They need to be fully aware of exactly what the royal family knew and did. And they need to deliver him up to justice. They can't protect him any longer.
Really appreciate it. I know your camera was broken. We only did it on the phone this morning, but they love everything about you, and we appreciate you being on again. Andrew Loney, live and exclusive on the phone there to Talk Breakfast, telling you in his own words that, look at the front page of The Sun, credit card. We thought it was the Queen who lent the Duke of York 12 million to pay off Virginia Giuffre. A Sun investigation this morning discovering that Philip, no longer with us, and Prince Charles knew about the money, were part of the loan. A penny hasn't been paid back, which is leading people, whether you're a monarchist or not, to say quite rightly this morning, so if you knew about that, Charles, you've known the depth of the depravity that your brother is accused of. You are up to your neck in it, and many are saying the only way out is for an abdication. That's for people to decide. It's 8 minutes to 8. Every morning, a brave Tory doing their best, and I give them credit, actually, to prove that everything that they did has gone and they're new, stands out in the wind and the rain. Today, it's the chance for the legend, the shadow chance of the Exchequer. Look, he's got a scarf on. Sir Mel Stride, good morning.
Yeah, well, keep going, Jeremy. I like the start, promising. Yeah,
well, that sounds a bit like my career. The start was promising and then it tailed off, Mel. Thank you. Welcome. We can talk specifics, or we can talk about just so much that engulfs this government. I just wanted to ask you yesterday, you were there at PMQs. Can you explain a man who is utterly, utterly appalled by Sir Jim Radcliffe's comments about how this country is being, well, he said colonised, some would disagree with that word, by people who shouldn't be here, how as an economy we can't last because there's 9 million people on benefits. He sort of wants an apology from Sir Jim Radcliffe, but continues to seemingly give peerages or jobs to people with links to paedophiles and won't apologise to the female victims at all.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Prime Minister is in a terrible position, all of it of his own making, and it comes down to appalling judgment. And if you look at the Epstein affair, with Mandelson, that appointment made at a time that he knew that there had been continued contact between Mandelson and Epstein. And then we look at the issue of Lord Doyle, his elevation to the Lords at a time when it transpires the Prime Minister, of course, knew before he took up his seat in the Lords that he had been supportive of somebody who had been charged with the most heinous sex offences, including the dissemination and ownership of indecent images of very young girls. I mean, the mind boggles. He is kind of in office but not in power at the moment because of all this chaos. It's totally a distraction to the real deep challenges that our country has, particularly economically, and of course they're not being addressed. And one of the things we've discovered, Jeremy, out of the revelations from the email exchanges between Wes Streeting and Peter Mandelson is that Streeting has been out there saying to Mandelson that the government has no growth strategy, and on that, at least, he is entirely right.
Yeah, I mean, we announced earlier that the UK economy grew by the staggering amount of 0.1% between October and December. Now, you're the economist, I'm not. But I just look at shops closing, food prices rising, energy bills rising, and I know that hard-working Brits are struggling, Mel.
Yeah, totally. These latest growth figures are just totally anemic growth. In fact, growth per capita, per head, which is the really most meaningful figure, has gone backwards both this quarter and the quarter before. People are getting poorer, and that's because of the government's choices. If you go out and whack taxes on businesses and jobs through national insurance, if you talk the economy down as the government did when they first came into office with this fictitious £22 billion black hole that they kept banging on about. If you borrow lots of money, spend lots of money, stoke inflation, keep interest rates higher than they would otherwise be, you damage the economy. And we are seeing it in so many ways, Jeremy. People are struggling now. Food inflation well above 4%. We're seeing unemployment at a 5-year high. And we're seeing this growth that's just limping along with no signs that anything is going to improve.
I agree, and I have to say that one of the things that comes through from the viewers and listeners is that whilst all these shenanigans about, you know, paedophile employers or coups or WhatsApp messages, the triviality, but the serious triviality, this country is, in many people's eyes, disappearing down the plug hole. He's a dead man walking, isn't he, Mel?
I can't see that he can survive this, Jeremy. I think it is just a question of time now. I think he probably bought himself a bit of time, you know, when Anna Sarwar, the Labour leader in Scotland, weighed in and said he should go, and then he rallied the cabinet and seems to have twisted arms to get people to tweet support for him, and that will probably buy him just a little bit of time. But there's going to be so much that will come out of the information that's now going to be disclosed in and around Peter Mandelson. One's got to imagine there's going to be a lot of very awkward things in there, and the lack of confidence that the Parliamentary Labour Party has in this Prime Minister, probably very bad election results in May. All of it tells me that at some point he will have to go.
It's always great to have you on, and we can celebrate this morning, Mel, because we're getting people back to work, because those 3 idiots that usually stand behind you with placards seemingly are no longer there and have returned to employment. Jeremy Kyle and Mel Stride making a difference. Thank you, my friend. Very good to hear from you. Mel Stride on Talk. The news at 8 is next.
and not tackling the rise in anti-Semitism, because it's all a bit awkward, because we might have to admit that we've imported a problem and we've encouraged a problem. And when you have a 13-year-old child allegedly shouting Allahu Akbar while stabbing 2 other kids in school,
yeah.
If that isn't your wake-up call, something is going horribly wrong and we need to deal with it. If the grooming gangs weren't enough of a wake-up call for you, I don't know what is.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello from Crowborough, where the local residents are enraged with what has happened to their community merely overnight, when just 27 single male asylum seeker illegal migrants were bussed into their military training camp. Behind me are local residents, people from all over the country. Shabana Mahmood has said that this is an effective way of getting rid of those expensive, flashy asylum hotels. But unfortunately, these people are still placed within the community.
Whole town is very afraid because these are unvetted men from countries that are, the government warn us not to go to. I've got an 18-year-old daughter and she gets the bus opposite camp. Do you feel safe for her? No, so that will have to stop. Right. We'll either have to wait with her or take her to wherever she needs to go.
The reason I'm here today is because I live in Crowborough and my family, I've got a wife and children, and just worried about, my wife walking to work and my sons, walking about. Anything can happen, can't it, that nowadays in age, what's going on, what's happening in this country. So I'm just concerned and frightened,
There was support from other towns, other communities, because of course Shabana Mahmood has threatened other communities, and she said they're going to open site after site after site. Well, I would hope that if she's going to try and do that, she learns some lessons about the way she's done it in Crowborough, because this is not finished. We are not finished objecting to this plan.
Grover says no! Grover says no! Grover says no!
We would urge her to reconsider, and whatever she does, she needs to talk to the people that she's imposing these things on.
If you had a direct line to Keir Starmer and Shabana Mahmood, what would you say to them?
Look after your most vulnerable first. It's your priority to look after your vulnerable.
If they're bringing illegal immigrants into a camp in the dead of night, why are they doing that? They're doing that because it's disingenuous, it's dishonest, it's covert, and they're trying to keep the reality away from the local community of what they're actually doing to us. We've now got to the end of the entrance to the camp, we've got cameras, we've got police drones, it's like a cloud.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning to you. Welcome back. It's just gone 8 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom on Talk, of course, the home of common sense, the home of the alarm clock, Britain. Thank you, as you know by now, for making this the radio station, Talk, that is listened to longer than any other speech radio station in the UK. That, my friends, is not window dressing. It is a fact. If you want to be on between now and 10 o'clock, 0344 499 1000 for your voice notes and your calls. Be gentle with Christian. He's had no sleep. I told him about having having kids, but there you go. You can send a text 87222. You're waking up on Thursday the 12th of Feb to what? Three main news stories. Keir Starmer apoplectic with rage yesterday. How dare Sir Jim Radcliffe? I mean, he might be one of our most successful business people and built billions of dollars and pounds worth of businesses. But what right did Jim Radcliffe have to say? That from an economic point of view, this country is not going to succeed with 9 million people on benefits and a colonisation of illegal immigrants. The left naturally have jumped up. You can't use words like that. It's outrageous, including Starmer. This is on the same day that it was proven that yet again he'd fast-tracked to a knighthood or a top job a friend, Matthew Doyle, who had links to a paedophile, Sean Morton, who admitted in 2017 indecent child image offences, and Starmer knew about Doyle's links and still fast-tracked him for a knighthood. Yesterday, this was his response when attacked over Matthew Doyle, the paedo lover.
Mr. Speaker, Matthew Doyle did not give a full account of his actions. And on Monday, I promised my party and my country there would be change. And yesterday, I removed the whip from Matthew Doyle.
Everybody lies to him. Mandelson lied to him. Matthew Doyle lied to him. His cabinet of bloody lied to him. This was Kemi's response. Brilliant.
How dare he criticise us? We weren't the ones stuffing government with hypocrites and paedophile apologists.
Jim Radcliffe really put the cat amongst the pigeons. Morning, Daniel.
Good morning, Jezza. It's Daniel from Epsom here. The British majority have been voting against all forms of immigration for about 30 years, OK? We voted for Brexit. We can see the decline and degradation in our society. Mass immigration from the third world is destroying the fabric of Britain. It's ruining our home. We don't want it. We've never wanted it. And Jim Radcliffe is spot on, and he's in line with the thoughts and wishes of the British majority. If only successive governments had to listen to us instead of ruining our country.
Dan will speak for many. The left will hate it. Let's centre on the conversation now that has started because of Jim Radcliffe. But let's hear from Jim Radcliffe. This is what the man who created INEOS said yesterday. Have a watch, have a listen.
I don't know whether it's just the apparatus that hasn't allowed Keir to do it, or he's maybe too nice. He's a nice... I mean, I know Keir. He's a nice man. I like him. It's a tough job, and I think you have to do some difficult things with the UK to get it back on track, because at the moment I don't think the economy is in a good... You can't afford... You can't have an economy with 9 million people on benefits and huge levels of immigrants coming in. I mean, the UK is being colonised. It's costing too much money. It will cause...
It's been colonised?
It'll cause... Well, yeah. The UK is being colonised by immigrants, really, isn't it?
You can see straight away the interviewer picked up on that word. I think there are bigger problems. The mainstream media have said, oh, his figures are wrong. Potentially there might be. But he has a point. What do you make of that? 0344 499 1000. There's the migrant tracker. Nearly 66,500 people have come in illegally since Starmer became Prime Minister. And as somebody pointed out to me yesterday during an interview, that's more than in our armed forces. We're delighted to have on the show this morning. It's been too long. Lord Benedict Spence, how are you, sir? Where are you, sir? What's going on, Spence?
I'm well, thank you, Jeremy. I'm in somebody's flat. Everything's well, but I don't have a working laptop, so you'll have to forgive me. I'm using a phone.
Right, you're in somebody's flat. Let's just jump in on that, Benedict Spence. Forget the profession.
Every time.
What?
Every time I speak to you, I seem to be in somebody's flat, not my own. I feel like the 14th Duke of Wimborne. That's sort of the vibe I'm giving off right now. But it's not important.
I'm loving this. Bang to rights Benedict is caught out again at some woman's flat somewhere in London. Maybe. Listen, my friend, I'd love your take. Jim Radcliffe putting the cat amongst the pigeons yesterday. You saw what he said. Fundamentally, I would suspect that a majority of people would agree with it. Maybe some of the language the left don't like, maybe some of the figures have been picked up on. But from a business point of view, Benedict, he is absolutely right. We've got 9 million people on benefits and people coming to this country in their droves who don't work and game a system that is too soft. Is that not right?
Well, it is. And what he said, about the number, the actual figures are slightly off over the time period that he's talking about, but they're broadly correct in terms of the massive increase in population, I think, over the course of just over 2 decades. And, you know, it meets the technical criteria of colonization. We've got people moving from one area of land to another to settle and getting involved in the administration of that new area. I don't think that that's unfair at all. You know, whether or not it's, you know, this is part of the problem, isn't it? That you've got people who talk about colonization as a sort of a nefarious thing. It's not necessarily, it can be sometimes, but it seems also perfectly justifiable for people to use words like decolonization all the time, as if, you know, colonization is sort of a part and parcel of everyday life. What's also really kind of interesting is, of course, you've got lots of politicians turning around and saying it's disgraceful that Jim Radcliffe is saying that the UK has been colonized. It's not been colonized. But you have lots of other people, you know, a lot of commentators, certainly ethnic minority ones, turning around saying, yes, well, what did you expect? You colonized our place, where we lived. So you've got two different sets of people, one saying it hasn't happened, and the other saying, well, it is happening and it's good. And, you know, that's the slight disconnect, really, in all of this. But he is ultimately completely right about the model itself. You can't have a culture, a society, that's got almost 10 million people out of work, of working age who should be, and you can't have it so that you've got net migration on in the millions, of whom almost none of them are net tax contributors. That doesn't work as a system.
And I think you're right. I think from a business point of view, he was right. Of course, the left will jump up and down. But for me, the big point of yesterday, Benedict, was that you've got a Prime Minister who was so outraged by the word colonisation. He tweeted last night, offensive and wrong, Jim Radcliffe needs to apologise. And yet was skewered again during Prime Minister's question time yesterday, because just barely a week after the debacle of the Mandelson appointment, and it nearly costing him his job before somehow, presumably by threatening a general election, the cabinet rode in behind him, he was found out again, this time over former advisor Matthew Doyle being fast-tracked in a peerage despite Starmer knowing of his links to Sean Morton, who in 2017, 9 years ago, admitted indecent child image offences. And I fail to understand how this man can be accused of having any judgment at all, Benedict.
Well, I think that that's the thing. And it's Starmer now jumping on the bandwagon and saying that Jim Ratcliffe needs to apologise. First and foremost, I think that that's a major alarm bell for a lot of people, because Ed Davey did it as well. What they're saying is not, oh, I disagree with Jim Ratcliffe, but that's fine. They're demanding that he toes the line. They're demanding that he falls into place and accepts that what they say is right. It is, if you like, a form of censorship that they're demanding, not free speech at all. But also, nobody is being fooled that this is coming, that he's being very opportunistic about this, because, of course, he's been embroiled in a major scandal. And, you know, we had the charade of his entire cabinet coming out and backing him the other day. Before then, this latest sort of round of things happened. And now we're told lots of his MPs, lots of his ministers are very unhappy with him. Well, yeah, at what point were they going to start being happy with him? This is a scandal that's going to keep on running. He's not the Prime Minister anymore. He is in theory, he is in title, he may believe that he is, but everybody knows he's not really the Prime Minister. He's hanging on now because none of his rivals had the gumption, the cojones, if you like, to actually take the shot over the last couple of days, because they're all worried about the upcoming by-election and the upcoming local elections. They don't want to be in place or having a leadership contest whilst that's happening. And they also want to get their own houses in order as to their own links to to Peter Mandelson as well.
Well, I want to ask you about that because, I mean, I used the analogy yesterday about football management. If I was offered a gig as a Premiership League manager and, you know, come now or come in 2 weeks, and the next two games were Arsenal and Man City, I'm coming in 2 weeks. And I think you're absolutely right about the by-election. I think you're right about May the 7th. All the polling will say on May the 7th that Labour are going to suffer catastrophic losses. In fact, here's a point, going off on tangent. Anis Sarwar, the Scottish Labour leader who called for Starmer to go and doesn't want him anywhere near Scotland, describes him as toxic. How can Labour, I mean, how does that even work? How can anybody stand on a manifesto created by a man who the leader in Scotland's called toxic? It doesn't work, does it?
No, it doesn't. And I think this is part of the anger that's currently enveloping much of the Labour Party, especially at the local level and in Scotland and in Greater Manchester. Their perception is that they are being thrown under the bus, that at a local level, at a regional level, the Labour Party in Westminster is happy to dispose of them, is happy to see Reform or the SNP or whoever it is sweep in and succeed for the ambitions of those in Westminster, be it Keir Starmer himself, happy to lose Gorton and Denton so that he could just stop Andy Burnham, basically, happy to throw away a seat. And in Scotland, now the perception, I think, is very much that whoever it was that agreed with Anas Sarwar that it's time to go, it's time to make the move, may have bottled it or may have got cold feet. That person has thrown Scottish Labour under the bus. And this is, I think, a large part of the problem, is that there is a perception of people playing politics in all of this, and they know that with every move that happens, a little bit more satisfaction, a little bit more support for Labour is chipped away, and it goes either to Reform, or now you've got the Greens, which, listen, I find it inexplicable that the Greens are doing well in the polls, but they are, and it means suddenly there is a threat to Labour from the left. It's not just Reform, so they can't just pick Nigel Farage and say, ooh, be careful of the bogeyman, you don't want to let him in. There's somebody else they need to avoid letting in as well.
Bogies are green. I'd also call Zach Polanski the bogeyman, or Hypnotits Benedict, as I've named him, because I think it's right. What you said earlier, I want to pick up on. Wes Streeting. Did you see that piece in the Daily Telegraph? Number 10 sources 2 days ago. We know where this rebellion's coming. His name... Did you read this? His name rhymes with Les Tweeting. I mean, unbelievable. I mean, Wes Streeting then appears on Sky, I think it was Tuesday, tearfully saying, here are my messages from Mandelson. Kiss, kiss, very intimate. But... I thought, mistake. Other people are saying, actually, typical Streeting, got those messages out, and then all of a sudden the security forces banned any other cabinet minister for doing the same. Many now saying that Streeting's in the clear over Mandelson.
He's in the clear potentially over Mandelson, but he has majorly dropped the ball in terms of his WhatsApps where he admits that he's basically done at the next general election, that he's suffering, that because of the support for Gaza independent candidates. You can't have somebody who's gone on record on his own WhatsApp saying, I'm toast at the next general election in my own seat. That's the problem. I think that you're right. He's slightly in the clear to a degree for now with Mandelson, even though we all know that he was a very close associate and protege of his, Mandelson. But broadly speaking, I think the party's going to be sat there going, do you know what? He's right. He is toast at the next general election. We can't have this guy because it would be embarrassing to have a prime minister who loses their seat come general election time. I do think that Wes Streeting has been on manoeuvres for some time. He's highly ambitious. He's highly capable.
Somebody told me he'd come out the womb and his first words was not mama or dada, it was PM.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. But the problem is he's too obviously ambitious. And we have to remember here, Labour doesn't actually like ambitious people. It doesn't reward ambitious people. We know that because it's taxing so many of us. But what it does like is faux appeals to diversity and to tick box exercises. Who they really want, and who I suspect is actually doing a lot of the running and writing and briefing about this, is Angela Rayner. I think that she believes that she's going to be exonerated by HMRC, and that if she stands, she will get it. And you know what? Given the state of the Labour Party, given how the party itself tends to vote, I reckon she's probably right.
And what do you, when you think about that, and by the way, don't jump on me, other people, Angela Rayner, walks into Downing Street with a bottle of Liefraumilch and a raspberry vape. I mean, honestly, can you imagine that? Can you? Her as our Prime Minister? God!
I can imagine it. It would be worse than Keir Starmer. And this is the thing. This is not me trying to be needlessly pessimistic, by the way. There are options out there who would be better than Keir Starmer, who would marginally improve it. Not a lot, but there are. Although the main problem itself is not just the Prime Minister, it's the backbench MPs who stop him getting all sorts of things done. But there are better options. The issue is, Labour seem to believe that the solution to reform being on the rise is to tack further to the left. They think, therefore, that that's one of the reasons why Angela Rayner would be good. They also have this weird idea that people out there in the country identify with Ange because she's a normal person, and that this is what normal people are like, whereas in reality, a lot of people find her pretty ghastly. But I can imagine that they'd bring her to us, that they'd give her to us as the Prime Minister, and they'd talk so much about her being a woman, and then I think there'd be a financial crisis, because I think the bond markets, the international financial system would take one look at us and go, haha, we don't trust you to pay us back a penny. We're going to massively jack up your borrowing costs. I think it would be a disaster.
I'm going to finish on a light-hearted note, because we didn't know when we got hold of you this morning that you were at some woman's flat somewhere in London, but we appreciate the effort. I'm not giving away where you are. Valentine's Day on Saturday. I am not doing a show ahead of Valentine's Day, but I want to do it slightly differently. Instead of like, ooh, do your Valentine's messages and what are you going to buy? I want to tell you about a fantastic story in the newspaper today about a woman saying, my marriage ended after 20 years because of a row over the dishwasher. Cat Farmer said last night, it was the dishwasher that finally pushed me over the edge. After dinner on Tuesday night, I could feel his eyes boring into my back as I shoved plates, glasses and cutlery into it, piling them haphazardly on top of one another, while Kat's husband at the time loaded the dishwasher with the care and precision of a Scandinavian architect. By contrast, her attempt was what she described as like a raccoon on drugs. They have split up unceremoniously. So for Valentine's Day, from the alternative angle, what's the most dramatic breakup reason that you have split from one of these many ladies that you spend time with, Benedict?
The most dramatic reason? Good Lord. I can't really think of any that were my fault at the very least. That's not a thing, surely. Probably. Maybe that my estate wasn't large enough. Maybe my political views. Who knows? They come up with all sorts of reasons. I don't tend to take it personally. I just, allow it. Nobody's perfect, least of all me. So why should I blame them?
I missed you. I can't have you. Yeah, brilliant. Go back to what you were doing before, and next time brush your hair. Benedict Spence, thank you very much indeed. 8:20. We're live across the United Kingdom. This is Talk Breakfast. Morning, Liam.
Morning, JK. Liam from Kent. Left my house at 2:45 this morning as I'm a HGV driver on my way to Liverpool. I listen every morning. This whole government, I can't even put it into context how much they are taking the mick. Like, all they do, all these lefties do, is deny everything. You tell them something that's the truth and they will deny it. They always say that we're all far right and we're this and we're that and the other. And do you know what? To be quite frank with it, I wonder why I bother getting up in the morning sometimes. It's only the fact that I love my job and I enjoy what I do is why I do it. Because when I see how much tax they take off of me at the end of the month and I get nothing in return, it makes me quite sick, to be perfectly honest. Cheers, Jezza.
Join me, Rob Jenrick, on the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show on Talk.
There's a lot of harm happening in the country right now. People feel like the country's in a mess.
What does this say about our entire prison, justice? The whole thing's a mess like so much else.
Well, it's a total shambles. Take away these human rights laws, which have got completely out of control now. I do believe that economies can be fixed and you can get catch-up growth and ensure that when people come here, they're detained and deported swiftly.
Ring in, ask me any question. I'm here to answer.
Across the UK on DAB+, DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Sorry, I'm laughing. 8:23, welcome back. I often say if you could have a camera crew or a microphone in the background, it turns out that Mark and, in fact, Christian started out on hospital radio. I actually, this is genuinely true, got sacked from hospital radio for saying hello to Mavis on the gynecological ward and quite seriously saying there was going to be a party on that ward later and it was bring a bottle. I didn't see much out of the end of that day. I was finished. Good morning, Mark.
Hi, Jezza, Mark, Bridge North. A new quickie, the Labour MPs and the front benchers and etc, Keir Starmer, Yvette Cooper and all them fools, do they ever meet anyone in the real world? Do they ever go in the general public and anyone speak to them? Because I don't know one person who's going to say anything nice to them. They're living in some sort of bubble, and surely they think everything's fine. It's just unbelievable. I just can't believe they're all so stupid. It's so embarrassing. God.
Good morning also to my good mate Rob. I haven't spoken to him for ages in Newcastle. I've been very busy. He said, and this is about Prince Andrew, he didn't borrow 13 million quid because he was scared a picture of him with his arm around a girl would be released. He did it because he knows how badly he is involved. And this was a desperate man hoping for the best. However, to find out that the Queen and now the King lent this man the money and to know that that conversation was had, we are supposed to believe the loan was based on harmless ficture. As a royalist, turns my stomach, Jez. I'm gutted to hear this answer. They should have said no. They had the ability to look at this and surely did. Let's be honest, the monarchy is damaged beyond repair, and I woke up this morning as a royalist, but he's so hacked off we haven't read his notes out. He says, for future messages, if I voice note Christian, did you think you could put it on? Absolutely, Big Rob. He says, look at them numbers on the station. Thank you very much indeed. Morning to Linda Cook. She says, I disagree with you vehemently, Jezza. Oh, I've upset somebody. I vehemently disagree with you about British citizens being at the back of the queue. We're not. We're not even in the damn queue. That's how bad it is. One of the big arguments overnight has been Sir Jim Radcliffe, of course, peeps, the man who built Ineos, one of the most successful companies in the land. He dared to say that the British economy was on its backside. 9 million on benefits, and in his words, a country being overrun by immigrants colonising us. Oh, for goodness sake, the shock and horror of the left, outrageous. Good morning to the Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control, Robert Bates. How are you?
Hey, mate. How are you doing?
I'm all right. We can talk about words and we can talk about figures. Jim Radcliffe's spot on, isn't he?
Yes, he is. And if you consider just the sheer scale we've seen, not even in the last 20 years where it has been really way beyond any historical levels, but even in the last 5 years where we've been seeing close to 1 million individuals arrive each year. And then you couple that with this political classes experiment with multiculturalism, we have seen a wholesale transformation of parts of this country. East London, Birmingham, big cities just simply aren't really what they were 10, 15 years ago. And I think actually what Ratcliffe has done here is acted as a lightning bolt for the concerns of millions and millions of people around this country. And it's very important at this point that we actually note the sort of the cries of execration that we're seeing from the likes of Keir Starmer demanding that he apologises, because what those politicians are really doing here is they're saying they don't care one jot about the concerns that hardworking British men and women have about what is happening in their country. And I think, we're seeing actually really two types of response. We're seeing that type, and we're also seeing individuals very openly saying, yes, this is happening. Britain is being colonised, but it's a good thing and you deserve it for all the evils of the British Empire and so forth. I think it's a comment that has revealed a lot about how many in the commentariat and many in the political class feel about people of this country.
I couldn't agree more. And when you sit here, right, and you do this every day, and I understand the ethos behind talk as much as anybody, and I do believe in freedom of speech. I've said it forever. The thing that annoys me about the younger generation is seemingly I can't have an opinion. But what annoys me about Starmer and his ilk, so it drives me to incandescent rage, and much of the left, is that, they will jump up and down if Jim Radcliffe even dares to use a word like colonisation, right? But why are they not jumping up and down for the victims, those child gang rape victims in the north of England? I'll tell you why, because they're terrified of losing a certain demographic vote. Why is he prepared to stand up in Parliament and go, oh, Matthew Doyle didn't tell me enough, the latest man that he's given a peerage to linked to pedos. Oh, Peter Mandelson didn't tell me enough. Why are they always shocked about things that don't really register with your average person? I keep talking about alarm clock Brits for a reason, because, and you've heard messages this morning, people feel like they do everything right and they're not even in the queue, according to the lady from Worcester, and it's not fair. I don't think that this government ever, genuine point here, not being personal at all, just don't think they have the necessary wherewithal to ever make the right decision or listen to what the public want or just read the bleeding room, Robert.
Well, the difference between Alarm Clock Britain and the Labour Party is Alarm Clock Britain actually love this country and want it to succeed and want it to remain a sort of wholesome society with they're proud of its heritage, proud of its culture, unashamed of the fact that this is a great country and not afraid to say so. For the Labour Party, that is absolutely taboo. Any of those concepts of Britain being worthwhile defending, worthwhile making sure is in a good place is completely beyond the pale, especially when you've got far more important matters of human rights and international law to bother yourselves with. So if anything, this country is an inconvenience for these individuals. It gets in the way of what their real aspirations are, which is just dilly-dallying around in the land of the abstracts. And unfortunately, it is this country that does suffer as a result of these policies. I think where this conversation needs to go now is we recognising that actually what Jim Radcliffe has said has really identified a huge problem that has taken place. But then we also need to start talking about what are the solutions to this. And I think really where we need to be heading is towards a sustained period of net negative immigration where more people leave than come into the country. I think we're at that point, and a crucial step towards that is to do what the Reform Party's policy is, which is to scrap indefinite leave to remain and to start to see those that have arrived in recent years at the very least on temporary visas return to their country of origin. I think actually this is a much more useful use of our time to talk about what the next steps are, rather than just howling about the semantics of one of our most successful businessmen.
I agree, and actually, interestingly, talking to you about migrants, and this is, you mentioned reform, they seem to have, they say they've got the will to do something. I guess that will have to see whether that materialised, depending on how they do in the next election. By the way, just to say the Reform MP who defected recently from Tory, Robert Jenrick, here after 9 o'clock this morning. You can ring Rob, get your texts and your calls in on questions. But Robert, I hear so many people say to me, "Oh, it's too difficult. There's too many laws. There's civil servants, the blob." I want a politician with the will and the balls to avoid or not worry about mainstream media people saying, "Oh, you're horrible, terrible man, it's awful." The fact of the matter is this country is creaking. This country is creaking in terms of its public services. It's creaking in terms of crime. And for all those people who jump up and down and talk about women's rights, which I completely support, it's also in danger of unvetted young men coming to this country who don't speak our language, do not hold our women with the same value, and sexually assault our young girls. And unless we do something about that, they can sit in 10 Downing Street, they can sit in Whitehall and pretend that, you know, it's really important to be all about the rights of other people. I have a question for Starmer and that lot, and they'd never let me ask it them. What about the human rights of the British indigenous people who are working hard all their lives? Because they feel like they're being treated really badly, pal.
Spot on. This country's been held hostage by Guardian front pages for far too long. We've not been able to have conversations about the grooming gangs, the risks posed by illegal migration, the risks posed by legal migration for far too long, because too many people have been concerned about what might be said by the commentariat, what nasty words might be used to describe their views. And this is why people such as Jim Radcliffe, who are powerful and influential and successful, coming forward and saying truly what tens of millions of people in this country do believe in their hearts of hearts and feel in their everyday experiences to be the truth is so crucial, because this kind of edifice that was constructed, it really in the Blairite era, has really held this country down below the waterline for far too long. And it's imperative that as many people come forward and start saying what the matter of the fact is, and we can start putting ourselves back on a sensible course that will actually ensure that this country succeeds long term, because at the moment we can all feel it, we're going down the pan.
There was that story earlier in the week. Bangor University banned Sarah Poachin and Jack Anderton from Reform from going to their university and debating about migration. You know, because and it was they were labelled sexist, racist, homophobic, misogynistic buggers, basically, and you can't come. And the university sort of distanced themselves and said it was student union. I'm sort of on your side massively. We can get wrapped up in students who are young and ideological, and we can get wrapped up in commentators, but there are millions of hard-working Brits who perhaps never, this is a really important point, never thought to comment or be involved, who feel the unfairness of what's going on caused by migration. It's not the only problem, but there is unfairness and wrongdoing, and I think finally prepared to realise that their voice counts. It can't go on, and the thing that sustains me is that something you said 10 years ago, if I'd mentioned immigration on a station like this, I'd have been deemed a racist within 5 seconds. This problem is not people being racist or far right. This is a problem across the world, but certainly we're talking about our country, that needs alleviating for the people. It's a simple business fact, as Jim Radcliffe said, right? You go to work, Robert Bates, and you work all month and you pay your tax. And I've come from another country illegally, and I'm in a 4-star hotel, and I'm getting a debit card and a phone, and you're just breaking even. You're not going to feel that's fair, are you? It's not bloody fair. It's a fact.
It's not fair that this government pays billions of pounds, over 10 billion, in benefits to citizens of other countries. It's not fair that we see, you know, close to 20 billion pounds being sent each year in remittances. It's not fair that we saw 750,000 GP registrations from individuals that have just arrived in the country last year. You know, roughly 120 per GP surgery. These are pressures being put on our public services. There's an extractive nature of this, of Alarm Clock Britain's money being taken out of their back pocket and given to individuals that have been in the country for 2 minutes. And that really is I can't think of an equation that is more unjust than this situation that we are currently seeing. And I think the Labour Party now cannot be trusted on either illegal or legal migration. Their position today and last night has been perfectly clear. They do not care about the changes and the unfairness of caused by immigration. And I think actually this really will now be an electoral cyanide capsule for them. And I hope they really are punished in the general election.
Great to have you on, Matt. I'd have you on every morning. You speak so much sense. Robert Bates, thank you, pal. Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control. Quickly to the phones. We'll go to London. Leon, you're on Tour Breakfast. Good morning.
Good morning, mate. How you doing?
Not bad for a... Oh, you don't care anyway. You asked me and carried on talking. Go on, crack on.
Well, just a quick one. Yeah, the main reason what occurs to me is why they're stopping the elections, the council elections.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Yes, is so Reform UK don't get into power. Yeah, so it don't slow down the colonisation of migrations in those seats.
I mean, I think I read a figure last week that Reform has had 900 new councillors in the last 12 months. There's no doubt at the moment Reform is leading in 207 opinion polls continuously. The Greens are definitely making advances. That's to the left of Labour. Labour are sinking in 4th and 5th in some constituencies and some wards. But for me, forgetting who wins it, I cannot in any way be more appalled by a government who takes the democratic right of people away to vote. And if you're Starmer, you catch 22 now, because you apparently are doing this and you've sold it as, we're not going to have local elections in certain areas because we're going to change the boundaries and we need to arrange it. Well, people are going to think you're running scared from exactly what you said, Leon. And if he backtracks now because of the outrage, then it'll be seen as another U-turn. It is another example, Leon, genuinely, of a man who seems to continually make the wrong decisions. Thank you for your call, pal. Good morning, Steve.
Morning, Jez. Steve from Surrey. Third generation ex-Royal Marine. I swore an oath of allegiance to my Queen, and I'll take that to the grave. But she dropped the ball on Andrew on this one. Charles is a wet weekend. Always has been, always will be. He knew all about it. He covered it up. Time for him to step down and let William take over and bring some more respect back to the monarchy and this country, because this country is a laughing stock. and I'm embarrassed to say I'm English. Great show, Jez, as always. You need to run for a politician, mate. You do. Got the good work.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 20 minutes to 9 o'clock. So ring Rob on after 9. Former Shadow Justice Secretary and now Reform MP Robert Jenrick here for 40 minutes. Taking your calls and your texts. You can ask him anything you want. If you're a critic of reform, phone the show, 0344 499 1000. Text your questions for Robert Jenrick on 87222. Sorry, Jez, I've majorly got the hump. Migrant rapists, grooming gangs, paedophiles, trans and even football pubs and... yeah, I'm not saying that. I just can't take these morons anymore. Have a good day. Michael, living next door to an asylum hotel. Morning, Julian. JK, my first marriage broke up 20 years ago. The reason it all ended was because I bought a waterbed, and after that, we just drifted apart. I love it. We'll do a bit of that. This is because, of course, the story about the woman yesterday who said, to celebrate Valentine's Day, I'm going to tell you all that my 20-year marriage ended because of a dishwasher row. He's very particular, I'm not, and that's why we split up. And we thought as an alternative on this show, that is alternative, as we head towards Valentine's, we won't talk about love messages, we'll talk about reasons why your relationship's broken up. 0344 499 1000. Right, who am I saying hello to? Chris, good morning.
Morning, Jezza. Love Poppy, by the way. I hope this message is played out on your show. I think we are now a country of the 3 Ds. Diversity equals division equals downfall. Sad, but in my opinion, true. Great show as always. Chris at Chichester Marina.
Thank you, mate. Chris, 20 minutes to 9. Right, up next, one of the stories that's dominated this morning, you've had real views on this. Labour have been accused of rank hypocrisy overnight as they bring in a new law to let 16-year-olds vote. So if you're about 12 3/4 right now, you'll be able to pick the next government. The change will mean voting rights will be extended to 1.7 million extra youngsters. The Tory overnight claimed that the PM doesn't even know what an adult is, seeing as how he's trying to ban them from legal activities like buying alcohol-free beer. We're delighted to say a very good morning to Labour councillor and commentator Sebastian Sully. Sebastian, I'm so sorry. At that exact moment, a biscuit's gone down the runway. How are you, sir?
It happens, don't worry. I'll hold the mic while you get a bit of water. Good to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, and you and I would be prime examples of what I say every single day. We don't have to agree. It's important to have a debate. That's what this is about. This is what the show is about. You can only look at this, surely, and go, almost everything that Labour is doing right now in terms of policy is aimed at trying desperately to stave off either the right or the left as they see a surge. So there are certain areas where the Muslim vote, I mean, I think Wes Streeting admitted in a text to Mandelson he's toast at the next election, is going to cause them problems. 5 independent Gaza standing-only MPs beating a Labour activist last time, including Jonathan Ashworth. This, to me, is another cynical attempt to try to tie up 1.7 million new voters, isn't it?
Look, I mean, I think if you made that charge in a lot of things that any government did, I would probably agree with you. It is just the mission of any government to win power, to stay in power, and to use that power for for the right things as they see fit. But on this one, I think it is just democratically the right thing to do. And remember, we're playing catch up here. If you live in Scotland or if you live in Wales and you vote for a councillor or a local government official, a member of the Scottish or Welsh parliaments, then you can vote at 16 already. And that has gone largely pretty well. I haven't heard of any horror stories there. So really what we're doing...
My problem is, Sebastian, there's no consistency. So I've written it down. Well, I didn't. Christian did. At 16, so if you're 12 3/4 now, Starmer and the Labour Party want you to be able to pick. Most 16-year-olds, and I've got teenagers, don't give a toss. Now, you can switch people on, but at 16, you can't buy alcohol, cigarettes, vapes, e-liquids, fireworks or kitchen knives. You can't buy or sell a property. You can't apply for a mobile. You can't apply for a phone contract. All of that, you have to have parental consent. You can't marry or have a civil partnership till you're 18. You can't go and see a dirty film or buy a movie, and you have to be 17 to drive a car. So my question to you, and I genuinely want your answer, is how is it important then at 16 that you should be able to vote for the way this country goes for the next 5 years, man?
I hear that argument a lot, Jeremy, and do you know what? I think it is not necessarily deliberately, but I think it is a big smokescreen because there are different ages where you can do all sorts of things. You become criminally responsible from the age of 10. We're not bringing that into the debate. I think what we should be focusing on is when you're really starting to go out and work, and for lots of people that will be at 16. In Scotland and in Wales and in Northern Ireland, you can leave school at 16. In England, you can get an apprenticeship, and at that point, you're earning taxes. The bulk of your time is spent out there earning money, and you should have a say in how those taxes are spent. But what we've seen is that the support goes up as well. Look, I know we are, as a human race, we are conservative in the sense that we don't like change, we like certainty, we like stability. But in Scotland, they did a great study on this.
Yeah, the Scottish thing is another example. I'm not a massive fan of the SNP, but Sebastian, let's bring it back to the fact. Are you able, not you, in your mind at 16, to be mentally advanced enough, right, to be able to make such a monumental decision? And more than that, how many 16-year-olds are invested in politics enough? That's my concern. It's a genuine concern.
Yeah, the two things I would say to that. I think on the mental advancement question, remember, we give the vote to people until they die. And sadly, there are many people whose critical faculties deteriorate before that, and they're still able to vote. There's no debate about that. On the point around whether they're interested enough in politics, I talk from personal experience. The reason I got into politics was because I was 18 in 2010. I suddenly had the vote. I had to make a decision. And before that, I didn't know my Labour from my Tories. I didn't have a clue. But I got into it. And here I am chatting to you today because I got the bug at that age, and I'd like to see other 16-year-olds do the same. And look, we see, again, I go back to Scotland because it's where the study was done, but there's higher turnout among lower voters. They're more likely to vote into their 20s, and it also breaks class divides. Typically, if you don't vote, you tend to be lower class. But among younger voters, among 16-year-old voters, that split doesn't exist.
What you've just said, hold on. You've just said amongst the lower class, they don't vote. So this is absolutely an attempt, is it not, by Starmer, to either encourage that class, that's the demographic. Listen to this. This is interesting for you. Mick, good morning.
Morning, Jeremy. Mick here from Lincolnshire. Up at 3 o'clock this morning, heading from Lincolnshire down to Redruth in Cornwall. 3.5 hours in, 4.5 to go. 16-year-olds voting. I'm ex-military, 24 years. So my mind is that a 16-year-old can vote for a government that can send people into armed conflict that they can't even go into themselves. Go figure. Great show, mate. Cheers.
Sebastian, that's a good point. Answer that, my friend.
Well, I can't remember the last time we had a referendum or a direct vote on sending someone into armed conflict. But on the working class point that you made a moment ago, I was talking to your colleague Alex Phillips yesterday, and she was making the opposite argument, saying that all working class people are now voting reform. So surely that is the opposite of a canny electoral strategy on Labour's part. But the point is, I don't think this is an electoral strategy. I think this is doing the right thing. I've been in Labour circles for a long time, and this has been a conversation for a long time. And now we're in power, and it's an opportunity to do something that has been long talked about. So I don't think it's a ploy to win votes. I think it's a ploy to bring more people into the electoral fold and give them the power to vote.
Sean in Bridlington, I love the interaction. That's what it's all about. Most 16-year-olds, tell him, will vote for who their far-left teacher tells them to vote for. It's an interesting point, isn't it?
Well, in my experience, like, I think back to being 18, people tend to vote more by what their parents told them to do, and that's going to happen at any age.
That's also very true. That's also very true.
Or whatever. So I don't think it's an argument not to lower the voting age.
What I love about you is that you do your stuff and you think you don't think it's wrong for 16-year-olds who are now 12 3/4 to pick the next election, pick the winner of the next election.
No, because the way time works is it moves on, we age, and then we become 16, and then we in theory, vote. But by that logic, we should be going hard on the Tories who allow 15-year-olds to vote in their leadership elections. And many times in the last decade, that election chose the next Prime Minister. So pretty rough of the Tories, I think, to come out criticising this policy when their own internal rules are even younger.
Fantastic. Good man as ever. Thank you very much indeed. Sebastian Sallet, Labour councillor and commentator. Thank you for being on The Breakfast Show. Let's go to Sunderland. Joan, Sunderland. Way, hey man. Johnny, how are you?
I'm all right, and you?
Not bad for an old bald man. You've got 30 seconds, love. What you got for me?
The guy you're talking to, with respect, is absolutely deluded. 16-year-olds getting the vote. Who would vote for someone when you can't get a job? If you're white, you're told not to apply. They haven't got a hope in hell of ever getting a house, owning a home. I know someone here who's been on the council list for 10 years, still waiting, but yet someone who breaks into this country can have one immediately. No way.
Listen, your views are very important. I've always said it, and to put Sebastian on is important as well, so people can hear the other side of the argument. That's what debate is about. Can I ask you a very personal question, Joan?
Yes?
Who's the better football team, the Toon or Sunderland?
Well, we're not doing bad at the moment. Newcastle was doing OK, but they're losing quite a bit.
Wow, that's going to upset the boys. Thank you very much indeed, Joan. Henry, I'm on air. That's my son, who forgets every morning that I'm on air between 6 and 10. Although I have to say, about young Henners, he's been in Portugal, golf training, warm weather training for the last 6 weeks, and he's coming home to his dad today. Isn't that lovely? Great. 10 to 9, Talk Breakfast.
Join me, Rob Jennerick, on the Jeremy Carr Breakfast Show on Talk.
There's a lot of harm happening in the country right now. People feel like the country's in a mess.
What does this say about our entire prison, justice? The whole thing's a mess like so much else.
Well, it's a total shambles. Take away these human rights laws, which have got completely out of control now. You know, I do believe that economies can be fixed and you can get catch-up growth and ensure that when people come here, they're detained and deported swiftly.
Ring in, ask me any question. I'm here to answer.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 8 minutes to 9. We're live across the UK. This is Talk, the home of common sense and, of course, Working Britain. Free, just opportunity to come and say what you want. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. I love this. How dare Keir Starmer have the bloody audacity to say that Jim Radcliffe should apologise? Where's the apology, Jez, to the girls who were raped? He's an arrogant, spineless little git, deflecting again, and frankly, he makes me want to puke. That's a great start to my day. Love the show, Jez. A happy Valentine's Day, my love. Wow. Is that like getting a card? Let's get a lady on next who knows all about Valentine's Day. I don't know why I said that. Layla Cunningham, Reform UK's London mayoral candidate. Good morning.
Good morning, Jeremy.
I was about to say, but we'll keep it private. I haven't seen you for 12 hours. Happy Valentine's Day, because I won't be here. You're in red anyway. Layla, yesterday, this outrage from Starmer about Jim Radcliffe daring to say there's 9 million people on benefits and we're being colonised, and yet he just squirms when anybody says you keep employing paedophile lovers into your inner circle. It's extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think he's failed on the judgment in a major way. And yeah, you're right. It's outrageous that he asked Sir Ratcliffe to apologise. Number one, he can say whatever he wants, Sir Ratcliffe. It's up to him. How can a PM ask him to apologise? But in a way, you know, there are elements of truth to what Sir Ratcliffe say, and people feel it.
I agree that. I mean, I think, you know, the mainstream media have had a go about the facts about Jim Radcliffe and some of the stuff. But in terms of running a business, he basically said the UK economy is screwed. You can't have all of these people on benefits. We've got a Labour government that's too scared or unable to do anything about benefits because that's its voter base. And I want to talk to you about Matthew Doyle. Yesterday, Badenoch accused Starmer of packing his government with paedophile apologists for nominating former adviser Matthew Doyle. Well, he didn't just... He fast-tracked a peerage, knowing full well that Doyle had supported Councillor Sean Morton, who admitted indecent child image offences in 2017. He used the word just then, judgment. This Prime Minister hasn't got any judgment, has he?
Well, I feel his judgment is always in favour of people who are friends with sexual offenders. You know, he can't say he's there, you know, and they go on and on about wanting to protect women and girls, yet they elevate those who sexually assault them or know those that do. You know, Jeremy, if you and I had a friend who was accused of that, we would not be friends with them anymore, let alone elevate them.
And I think you make a really good point about women and girls, because I'm going to bring it back there again, and I know what you'll say. If you pretend to care about women and girls, why the hell haven't you called a national inquiry into the grooming gang inquiry? And grooming gang inquiry, because you then stand accused of cozying up to people like Doyle and Mandelson. And what about the victims?
I mean, yeah, this is so basically, Starmer says he'll protect women and girls, but he defends colleagues who enabled predators, basically. And in terms, I mean, the inquiry is a total whitewash because they've got a Labour peer who's the chair. They said it's non-exhaustive, which means that they won't look at every case in every town. So they're not going to uncover anything embarrassing again. And they've got a Labour peer, frankly, I mean, I was on LBC yesterday and I got pushback on that, but I'll stand by it again. It should be a judge. Her name is Anne Longfield, and she was the Child Commissioner at a time when reports out of her office failed to disclose the ethnicity of the abusers, despite victims telling her that they were key to understanding how these gangs worked. So I do feel it's a whitewash.
I think more than that, I think it's appalling to put political gain before. I just get wound up later because so many women will come on this show and talk about women's rights and safety of women, and I think that's absolutely right. I don't include you in this. And then none of these women, and I'm not going to name them because then I'll get into trouble. I don't hear anything when girls get raped on beaches by illegal migrants or attacked sexually, you know, somewhere in the dark whilst they're walking home innocently. I don't hear anything about those victims of those rape gangs, but I constantly hear about, you know, oh, I'm outraged that anybody would use the word colonialisation. I'm outraged that people would not think it right to give the Chagos Islands back to those poor Maldivians. It's just, there's no common sense, and I hate to use that again, mate, but there is no common sense in his decisions at all, is there?
No, there aren't. But sadly, Jeremy, it does permeate down to some of the public. I mean, I was on Any Questions BBC, and the Labour peer was there obviously defending Starmer's decision about Mandelson and saying, you know, he took accountability because he apologised. And I said, you know, in a normal job, if I'm in HR and I appoint Mandelson to a job, sorry's not going to cut it, I'm going to lose my job. That's accountability for the rest of us.
And what does the Labour peer, when you said that, what does he say? How does he respond?
Oh, it was a lady. She said, of course he apologised. That is accountability. And then she says, in the Labour Party, we take the safety of women and girls. We've had the most far-reaching policy that we're going into schools to lecture boys. And I said, I'm really sorry, but if you really cared about the safety of women and girls, you do everything you can to stop those men coming on the boats completely unchecked. We've just had a 12-year-old girl that was raped. And I was booed by the crowd and booed by the panel. And my question to them was, why doesn't the safety of these young girls that have been sexually assaulted or raped matter to them? I was literally
it's beyond me. Booed by the crowd?
Booed by the crowd for saying that if you really cared about women and girls, you would stop the men coming on those boats.
The only thing that would sustain me for people listening is who begin to lose faith is that crowd has undoubtedly been invited to the BBC recording and probably... I mean, I never watched Question Time. How biased is Fiona Bruce recently? I've never seen anything like it, the way she treats certain people.
I know, and you wonder, because I know, for instance, some channels, I wonder Ofcom just doesn't get involved somehow in the BBC. They can have a complete bias.
It's completely extraordinary. We've got Ring Rob on next. Just very quickly, 16-year-old votes, the Labour Party. What's your view? 30 seconds.
Well, I heard what Sebastian said. I'm sorry, you are not liable for crimes at 16. You're treated as a youth. You get much lower sentencing. But listen, they're not allowed to drink. They're not allowed to drive. They can't sign a contract, but they're mature enough to pick a government. It's not about democracy for me. They obviously can't win the adults, so they're going to try and now recruit the children who haven't had to pay tax. So of course they'll vote for more welfare.
Completely. And interestingly as well, somebody said, most young people get their information off social media, and the Labour Party are trying to ban under 16s from having it, so that'll be a good one. Great to have you on, Layla. Good luck with the mayoral fight in London for reform. Appreciate you coming on. News at 9, and then Robert Jenrick. What do you want to ring Rob with? 87222. Send your question. News at 9 is next.
Across the UK. On on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. It's just got 9 o'clock in a minute. Ring Rob, Robert Jenrick, the former Shadow Justice Secretary, live and exclusive for the next 45 minutes. If you want to ask him a question, you can do it two ways. You can ring or do a voice note, 0344 499 1000. You can text to 87222. Start your message with the word talk. So much response. Hannah, good morning.
Morning, Jeremy. Jim Radcliffe is an absolute major player in a dying industry in this country, manufacturing. He employs around 4,000 people in this country. That's 4,000 taxpayers he's created. And he's employing these people in places like Grangemouth and Hull, where unemployment is sky high. The only person that needs to apologise is Keir Starmer, because Jim Radcliffe speaks truth. I've been to Keighley, I've been to Blackburn, I've been to Burnley, I've been to Bradford, and let me tell you, the UK is colonised by people that will never contribute or pay in. He's right. The economy is going to die if we carry on. We cannot afford it.
Thank you very much, Dita Hannah, and a very good morning to Robert Jenrick, MP, former Shadow Justice Secretary, now Reformite. How are you?
Good morning. Very nice to see you again.
So much going on. This is everybody up in arms, apparently, on the left, that Sir Jim Radcliffe, the builder of one of the biggest businesses this country's ever seen, Ineos, dared to say last night, and actually, can we play to Robert the clip? Have you got the clip of Sir Jim Radcliffe? This is what he said that caused complete outrage on the left.
I don't know whether it's just the apparatus that hasn't allowed Keir to do it, or he's maybe too nice. He's a nice. I mean, I know Keir. He's a nice man. I like him, but it's a tough job, and I think you have to do some difficult things with the UK to get it back on track, because at the moment I don't think the economy is in a good. You can't afford. You can't have an economy with 9 million people on benefits, and huge levels of immigrants coming in. I mean, the UK is being colonised. It's costing too much money. It will cause.
It's been colonised.
It'll cause. Well, yeah. The UK is being colonised by immigrants, really, isn't it?
Rob, you can hear the interview jump straight in, and it's all about the fact he used the word colonised. The PM instantly tweets, Radcliffe's comments are offensive and wrong. We'll get on to paedophilia in a minute. What was your response to Jim Radcliffe last night?
Well, look, you say some people have taken offence at the turn of phrase he used, but let's look at the facts. In the last 14 years, 14 million people have come into this country. We've been living in an unprecedented era of mass migration, and if you look at who is coming in recent years in particular, it's predominantly people who are not even coming into work. And where they do work, they're doing low-wage, low-skilled jobs. These are people who are not going to be economic contributors to our country. They are putting massive pressure on housing, on public services. I don't know if you read during the week, there was a statistic that 750,000 migrants last year alone signed on with doctors. Whereas no wonder people can't get a GP. Where are the GPs going to come from? And it's also undercutting the wages of British workers. So you've got people on low wages working in distribution centres, food processing factories, the kind of people I represent in North Nottinghamshire. And there's no pressure on the employers to invest in them, improve their skills, or frankly invest in technology like robotics and so on that are going to power the British economy forwards, because you can always reach for this easy lever of bringing people in from overseas. The other point is no one voted for this. Election after election, under Labour and Conservatives, most people thought they were getting a country in which the level of migration was going to fall. The Conservative Party suddenly kept promising tens of thousands. What did it end up delivering, particularly under Boris, the Boris wave?
1 million in.
1 million people at one point coming into the country, putting unbearable pressure. And there are some parts of our country, pockets of our big cities, that are completely unrecognisable today to what they would have looked like 10 or 15 years ago. And perfectly understandably, people don't want that. They didn't vote for it, and that's not the kind of country that they want to live in.
So would you say you agree with him? Has Britain been colonised, the UK?
Well, I don't know if that's the right turn of phrase. You can argue over that as much as you like.
Whatever.
But the point he was making is absolutely right, and Keir Starmer and all those who've jumped on this need to get their heads out of the sand and actually look what's happening in this country.
What do you think is the... I'm not trying to be pedantic. What do you think is the right phrase, then, if colonised isn't?
Well, we've lived in an era of mass migration, haven't we?
Yeah.
More people have come into the country since Tony Blair became Prime Minister than in the 1,000 years before then. That is an astonishing statistic. You know, in the 80s and 90s, we were living in a country where either there was net emigration, so more people were leaving than were coming in every year, or immigration was very low, in the tens of thousands. And the people who were coming in, if you look at the motives of people who were coming in, they were coming in to fill particular shortages in the NHS or, you know, do jobs, set up small businesses. In recent years, people have been coming in who have no intention of working at all. You know, not even coming in on work visas.
Yeah.
And the country just can't afford that. And that's the point that Jim Radcliffe is making. We're not a rich country.
Yep.
Where do you think the money's going to come from to pay for all of this?
So you don't
Hard-working Brits who are listening to this show today, you know, who are on the factory floor, in offices, putting in a shift, they are paying for people to come into the country who will never be economic contributors.
Completely
and that
agree.
can't go on any longer.
So very quickly, Radcliffe doesn't need to apologise for his comments.
No, of course not. The people who should be apologising to the British public is the succession of politicians, the political class in this country, who stood in elections promising that they would do what they said they were going to do, bring down migration, and then proceeded to do precisely the opposite. And that's got to end.
Right, let's go straight to the phones to Shropshire. Daniel, a very good morning. You are through to Robert Jenrick. Go.
Hello. As we've seen the rise of sharp rise of anti-Semitism in this country, since October the 7th and the pro-Palestine hate marches, it hasn't been coming from the far right. It's been coming from the far left and Islamists, and both the Jewish Chronicle and Campaign Against Anti-Semitism have come out and said this. If you look at some of the groups behind these anti-Semitic hate marches, they're the Socialist Workers' Party, the Revolutionary Communist Party, the Communist Party of Britain, the Communist Party Marxist-Leninist. So do you think it is time for a complete legal definition of far-left extremism, and will Reform finally be the party that recognises communism as an extremist ideology?
Well, good question.
Great question.
Well, firstly, the cancer of anti-Semitism we have in this country is an absolute disgrace. The fact that a majority of British Jews don't feel they've got a future in our country and are, in many cases, actively considering their options to leave is, it should shame us all. And we have to fight against that. And by that, we can't just have warm words. People are sick of politicians just saying, you know, this must never happen again, you know, going on rallies and speaking to crowds. We want action. And action is taking a zero-tolerance approach to extremism of any kind, whether it's from the far left or the far right. But the point that your caller is making is correct, that although, of course, there's been a problem historically on the far right, actually, the statistics from our security services suggest that the overwhelming majority of extremists in this country, violent, dangerous extremists, are actually coming from Islamism. And so that is the primary focus that we should be seeking to address. And that means rooting out hate preachers, revoking the visas of people who are in this country who are behaving in this way, clamping down this whenever we see it. And frankly, when we see marches through the streets of London where people are calling out for, you know, jihad or saying that they support the Houthis or Hezbollah or Hamas, these people should be being arrested. They should be going to jail, and if they're not Brits, they should be out of the country as quickly as possible.
Can you please ask this Mike in Milton Keynes, loads to get through, Rob. Could you ask Robert how long it will take in his mind for Reform to leave the ECHR?
I would like to see a Reform government send in our notice to the court on its first day in office. There's no reason we can't do that. I think technically there's a 6-month period you're supposed to give before you actually leave, so it may be that it takes us a little bit longer because of the way that the treaty was set up. But day one, Reform Home Secretary Nigel Farage as Prime Minister, give our notice to the court and begin the process of taking back control of our laws.
But so many people say those are words. The reality is that it is tied up in legalities and difficulties, and a lot of people say it's okay to say it, but are you guaranteeing if you were elected that you could get that? Is it down to will? Is it down to legality? What is it down to?
Well, it's a question of political will, isn't it?
Yep.
And, you know, one of the reasons I ultimately chose to leave the Conservative Party was I just did not believe that they would actually do it. When I was arguing to leave the ECHR, most people I spoke to in the Conservative Party said we couldn't do it. We're too worried about our reputation with international lawyers and our respectability on, the international scene, whether you can go to conferences in Davos and so on and be garlanded with roses. I don't believe that they would do it. I do believe that Reform would do it because it's been such a long-standing commitment to Nigel Farage and to everybody in Reform that it would be one of our first priorities.
Let's go to Andy in Hackney. Andy, you're through to Robert Jenrick. A very good morning to you.
Good morning, Jeremy. I'd like to ask Robert, because not 8 months ago on the breakfast show on Talk Radio, you said you wouldn't want to leave the ECHR. You wanted to try and reform it first. And that was not 8 or 9 months ago. Now, I'm one of the many long-standing that left the Tory party because of what happened with Rishi Sunak being shoehorned in. But I want to know that if given the chance in the House of Commons, you will actually say, yes, I will put my mark on leaving the ETR. No caveats, none of I want to wait until the British Civil Rights Bill to come through. I want to know you're going to stay there and go, yes, I want to leave.
Yeah, look, absolutely. And I'm not sure what you're referring to. You might be thinking of somebody else, I'm not sure, because I've been saying this for a very long time. In fact, I resigned from the last Conservative government in the winter of 2023, arguing that there was no way that we would be able to secure our borders without essentially leaving the ECHR. I then went on to the backbenches. I voted against that government. I put on my leaflets at the 2024 general election that we should leave the ECHR, and I stood for leadership of the Conservative Party, with my main pledge being leaving the ECHR. So I have been saying this for quite a long time now. Of course, there are people who've been saying it even longer. Nigel Farage has been making this argument since I was a teenager.
Absolutely.
And so his consistency and conviction on this point is very clear. And when you see a leader as weak as Keir Starmer, you just think, this country needs someone like Nigel who would be a strong Prime Minister. It's crying out for that.
It certainly needs somebody that
people can have real confidence in him, that when he says something like, we're going to leave the ECHR, we're going to stop the boat, he actually means it.
It's quite interesting. Thank you, my friend. Maggie says, cheers, Robert, I'll tell you how to leave the ECHR. Ignore it like other countries do, which is interesting. Mike in Lincoln.
Maggie is absolutely right. The farce of the situation we've had in recent years is most European countries ignore the ECHR. We gold plate everything that it does. And I remember having this conversation with Rishi Sunak. I said, people are sick of the small boats. For goodness sake, let's just get these flights off to Rwanda. Who cares if this court ends up, challenging us many, many years down the line?
Appeal it.
Let's just do what the British people want us to do.
I used to be told when we were doing this show at the beginning that the reason we couldn't leave the ECHR was because how would it look? Only Belarus and Russia aren't involved, but most people have used it to their own ends. And what I never hear...
But also the United States, Canada, Australia, many other great liberal democracies around the world are not parts of the ECHR.
But the other thing you don't hear is the argument, this was set up 60, 70 years ago. Times have changed immeasurably. With it, what we need.
What do you think Winston Churchill, who was the signatory to the European Convention, would have thought if he was alive and well today and we could say to him that because of the way the treaty is being used, an Albanian criminal is delaying his removal back to Albania because his son doesn't like the taste of chicken nuggets in Albania?
This is
you'd be disgusted.
Major news story today. Labour are being accused of rank hypocrisy by the Tories, actually, as they bring in a new law to let 16-year-old vote. The change will mean voting rights will be extended to 1.7 million extra youngsters. The Tories saying the PM doesn't even know what an adult is, as he's also trying to ban them from legal activities like buying alcohol-free beer. Mike in Lincoln says, can you ask Rob what Reform plans to do over votes for 16-year-olds when, he says, they get elected? Would they reverse it, run a referendum, leave it alone? What would you do?
Well, look, we're sceptical of this. I don't think Labour know what they're doing on this. They're saying to my daughters that they're not allowed to look at social media. They can't, buy a non-alcohol beer. They won't be able to have a vape, but they'll be able to vote at 16. It just doesn't make any sense. I think this is going to backfire, actually, for Keir Starmer, because I don't think that young people are going to look at this Labour government and think it's actually doing things in their interest. The country feels like it's in a mess at the moment.
I don't know any 16-year-olds that are switched on enough to think.
I'm not so sure about that, actually. I mean,
really?
I've got.
Well, you must have. My kids don't get out of bed. I tell you what I worry about, genuinely as a parent. I worry about what's happening in our education system. I genuinely do. Universities and education and some of the stuff that I've heard from my daughters.
What kids are being taught at school right now, and that's why, Reform are very committed to having a curriculum that actually instills in people a love of our history and our heritage, rather than constantly demeaning or denigrating this and just, feeding our kids with one particular narrative of our country.
This is interesting from Heather, a good question. I have a question for Robert Jenrick. Is Reform going to put victims first in sexual abuse cases and have tougher sentences for the abusers so they won't come out of jail early but will face the full system for the crimes they've committed? Great question.
Yes, absolutely. And if you look at the present situation, we're seeing tens of thousands of criminals being released early from prison because successive governments have not built enough prison places. That was a terrible mistake. They closed old Victorian jails before new ones even came on board. And, some of these people are dangerous individuals. They're thugs who've beaten people up. They're serial shoplifters. They're people who have even killed people in dangerous driving incidents or domestic abuse. We've got to make sure that these people are in jail for longer, and we've got to build more prisons faster than we have done in recent years, and that's what Reform wants to do.
I've got a question, a bugbear of mine actually, and this would be as a voter. Why do we bother? You were the Shadow Justice Secretary. Why do we bother saying, right, you're going to Christian Mitchell, you're going to prison for 5 years, and then that, I think, will bring it down to about 30%. What is the point, or has ever been the point, of giving a prison sentence, Robert Jenrick, that people don't have to see through? I don't understand that.
Yeah, no, I'm very sympathetic to that argument. What victims want to know is what's actually going to happen to this criminal.
Yeah.
So when a judge stands up and says, oh, you've been, given life imprisonment, but it doesn't mean anything because they'll be out in 15 years, I think the judge should actually say the truth. And so from the get-go, everybody knows what's actually happening here.
This is brilliant this morning. So many different questions. One to Richard Akehurst in Northampton. Reform has said that they would support a change to the voting system from first past the post to proportional representation. As you're leading in the polls, can you please ask Robert Jenrick if this is still the case? Good question.
Well, I think Nigel has been very clear that he's happy with the present voting system, and there are arguments for and against, but I've always felt that first past the post serves our country well. One of the things I particularly admire about first past the post is the constituency link. There's no other system in the world which guarantees you this direct link to your own part of the country, where you've got 100,000 people who you're there to represent, and people know you, you know them. I'm going to my constituency tonight. You do surgeries, you look after people. That's a very important element of our system, and I want that to continue.
This is anonymous for a reason. I have placed my hope in Reform UK. I do not go out alone due to feeling unsafe. I live alone and never feel safe in my own home once the sun goes down now. Why, as a British single woman, can I not be put before the illegals who every government I see has allowed them into the country? Can Reform through Robert Jenrick tell me that you will be able to deliver on the things that they've promised that I really, really am concerned about? Great.
Well, that's a great question, and that caller is not alone. There are people worried across our country who are in communities where there may be asylum hotels, and there are undocumented men who've come in, are living amongst them, and there are serious sexual crimes being committed. We see this every day, don't we? I mean, look what's happened in Epping, where I've been to Epping twice in the last 12 months, and the people I've met there were just worried mums and grandmothers and parents who do not want that. And I've always taken the simple view that as a father of 3 daughters, if I wouldn't want that for my daughters, why should I be imposing it on other people?
I get
other
that,
communities?
but you see, I'm the same. But for her, the point she's saying, which is I think really interesting in terms of the political landscape, is that governments in her lifetime have repeatedly promised
and then failed
to deliver. And I think that is a major hurdle over whoever is elected next time.
It is, because people have been let down so many times. And if people, as I believe they will do, vote for change in the next general election and have a Reform government, they want to know that we've got the team alongside Nigel Farage who will actually get the job done, and serious, detailed, credible policies. And that's exactly what we intend to do. On illegal migration, we're very clear.
we're going to detain and deport absolutely everyone who enters our country illegally. That means no more hotels, no more undocumented men living in HMOs or, you know, on a street near you. They'll be in detained accommodation, and then they'll be out of the country, back home to wherever they came from.
I've got a question actually that I've longed to ask one of you. We haven't got much time, so as quick as you can. I don't mean that badly. You look at what's happening in America with ICE. They've obviously been and made mistakes. It has split the country, and many on the left would say it is an appalling optic to see poor people being dragged from their homes and put in detention centres. Does reform have the shoulders broad enough to take the torrent of abuse that will come when that detain and deport action that you say, if you're elected, you'll fulfil?
Yes. Look, ICE have obviously made mistakes, and Donald Trump has said that himself. So we're not looking to emulate that or what might be happening in the United States. But what we do want is a very simple principle that if you enter our country illegally, in flagrant breach of our laws, as a matter of fairness, then you should be asked to leave, and we're going to ensure that actually happens.
Let's go to North Yorkshire. Kevin, you're through to Robert Jenrick. Good morning.
Hello there. Thank you. Yeah, I can understand Robert's reticence to use the word colonise or being colonised. I can understand that. But what the boss of ENEOS, I think I both agree and disagree with, is people use it in the wrong context. You look at the colonisation that the British did. They always left. I can't think of a country where they didn't leave it in a better state than it was in. They left it with infrastructure. They left it with a sense of how to govern. And you look at the Central African countries, all of them, all the ones that are doing well are the ones that we colonised and left with infrastructure and systems of how to operate. The difference between the type of colonisation that's taking place now, which it is exactly the same, but it's not going to leave the same aspects in this country. It's going to take away those aspects from this country. It's going to replace them with the type of countries that they came from, because that's what's happening. And unfortunately, people see it and realise it, but the people at the top, that particularly the leftists, just don't want to appreciate that. They can't appreciate it. They can't see it. They're ideologically compromised.
What are you trying to ask Robert Jenrick?
What do you want me to ask? Does he believe that the country's being colonised in that way? Because I think it is.
Well, look, where I do agree is we live in a multi-ethnic country.
Yep.
And in many respects, that's a good thing. But there has to be a strong, unifying sense of national identity, and one that's not just rooted in kind of nebulous terms that the left use, like British values. Of course, we all want to live in a country which is democratic, where there's the rule of law, where there's freedom of speech. It's also got to be rooted in our history, our heritage, our customs, our norms. And I want everyone who lives in this country to know that and to have a strong sense of, our food, our landscape, our architecture, our literature, and not for people to be living parallel lives. And that is unfortunately what is happening in some parts of the country today. There are increasingly segregated, ghettoised communities.
How'd you get over that quickly? How'd you get over that?
Firstly, stop making the problem worse, and that means bringing down immigration right down, because you just can't integrate people at this scale. It's impossible to integrate the number of people.
Well, I'm going to throw something right in the mix as we go to a break. I wonder how many people who come here illegally want to integrate.
Well, some don't. Some disappear into society. They don't learn the language. They don't pay their taxes. Obviously, it's got to stop. And there are some practices we've just got to be very clear that we don't accept in this country. I mean, look at cousin marriage, for example. Unbelievable that is still happening. Probably happening more today than it was 5 or 10 years ago. And the Labour government won't ban it. No. Despite the fact that it has terrible health defects, and you've got people leading diminished lives with worse prospects as a result of this. Why? Because they're playing up to the gallery of an Islamist voter base, and that's got to stop.
Sharon is not in a huff. She's called Sharon Huff. As we go to the break, very quickly, Robert Jenrick. OK, Nigel is PM. It's the first meeting of the Cabinet, day one in number 10. You're around the table. What is, very quickly, top of the agenda? What's the first thing that reform would do?
Well, the two central things we've got to do are we've got to make good on our promise to the British public to stop the boats and to finally bring down immigration. And secondly, this is obviously going to take longer, we've got to raise people's living standards. The economy is in a mess right now, and we've got to ensure that we bring back good jobs and we lower people's bills, because people are hurting at the moment. You've seen the figures that are out this morning. which Keir Starmer was trumpeting as a success, 0.1% growth. And if you look at it per person, it was a decline. People are actually getting poorer month after month in this country, and that's got to stop. That is what reform is in business for, fixing immigration and ensuring that we actually get the economy going again and that it benefits British people for once.
Thank you to Sharon. Thank you to everybody for your questions. 15 more minutes for Robert Jenrick. 87222 on the text and 0344 499 1000. This is Talk Breakfast.
Join me, Rob Jenrick, on the Jeremy Carr Breakfast Show on Talk.
There's a lot of harm happening in the country right now. People feel like the country's in a mess.
What does this say about our entire prison, justice? The whole thing's a mess like so much else.
Well, it's a total shambles. Take away these human rights laws, which have got completely out of control now. You know, I do believe that economies can...
We genuinely are on resignation watch. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson, who faces a criminal investigation.
Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? We have breaking news for you. We've just been talking about, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. We've now had another resignation from Number 10. And Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has now also resigned. The plot is sickening. The noose is tight.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 9:30. Julia here from 10. And how about Ring Rob? Robert Jenrick, former Shadow Justice Secretary, now Reform MP, with me. Thank you for that, Rob. Interesting question from Caroline. I've said you can ask him anything. Why has Robert, or no one from Reform, attended the rape inquiry currently ongoing by Rupert Lowe when Robert, before leaving the Tories, said he would?
Well, look, I'm pleased, firstly, that Rupert is doing this. They seem like they're very worthwhile events that he's holding. And, you know, if I can help in any way, I will do. But what matters actually is getting the proper statutory inquiry to happen. And that's what I've been campaigning on, as indeed has Nigel Farage. And that never seems to happen, does it?
No.
You know, for over a year now, there's been a campaign. The government reluctantly was pushed into doing it. And yet, when is that starting? I mean, it's unbelievable that this is procrastination continues. And
I don't know how you can stand up as the Prime Minister and talk about how you worry about women's and girls and everything that's gone on in this case at the moment.
Well, the Prime Minister says that you know, his priority is violence against women and girls.
Well, stop employing and promoting paedophiles.
The most egregious example of violence against women and girls in our country's modern history, the grooming gang scandal, has gone on unaddressed, and he will not get this inquiry up and running. And as you say, what is the Labour Party's problem with paedophiles?
Well, listen, this is Sean in Somerset.
Why are all these Labour politicians suddenly friends with paedophiles?
Well, right, it says...
I don't know about you. I don't have any friends who are paedophiles.
No.
Who has friends who are paedophiles?
No, Sean in Somerset says, Rob, with so much drama going on around the Starmer and Mandelson and the latest, what's that one called, Matthew Doyle, if Reform UK get into government, would they ensure to me now a major inquiry into all links to paedophilia within the entire public service? Because I think it's widespread. Wow.
Well, look, I think it's absolutely disgusting that these people have been appointed, you know, to the most senior positions. I mean, this guy, Matthew Doyle, I know it won't matter to anyone in the country because no one's heard of the guy, but he was a very close associate of Keir Starmer. He worked with him in Number 10. Obviously, Starmer knew him intimately. He appoints him to the House of Lords.
He apparently
fast-tracked him.
He fast-tracked into the House of Lords. It was well known that he had this friendship with a paedophile.
This is for facts. Sean Morton, he supported him, believed in his innocence, but Morton admitted indecent child image offences in 2017. That was nearly 10 years ago, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, yeah. It's absolutely disgusting. And the other thing to say is, whilst Starmer and the Labour Party are wound up about all this stuff and distracted by Mandelson and their friendships with paedophiles, what is happening in the country? You know, people are suffering in the country. I was in my constituency last week, and you've got a business, a garage, who can't pay its bills. It's got a 100% increase in its business rates, but it's having to lay off somebody who's a father of 3 young daughters who I was chatting to in the garage. And nothing is happening to address these problems. The government is in complete chaos. We've got a Prime Minister with no authority, achieving nothing, who's probably on the way out anyway. Government has come to a standstill, and the British people are suffering as a result.
Let's go to Alan, voice note. Morning, Al.
Morning, JK. Alan from Swansea. Brilliant, Kermie in the Commons yesterday, calling these paedo protectors out, anti-Semites. Well, the list is endless. But in the great words of Lisa Nandy, if it walks like a duck and sounds like a duck, it's a duck. Wise words indeed. And tell Starmer, stop grabbing his thumbs when he speaks. He's driving me insane. Keep up the great show, buddy. Ta-da.
He needs his own show, I think.
Sorry, you're Generate. Do you think that Kemi did well yesterday?
Yeah, that was a good performance. You know, it's important to hold Starmer to account like that. I mean, that's her job, isn't it, as leader of the opposition?
It was interesting watching him. I mean, he just doesn't have an answer. You just made the point. I mean, it's a difficult question to ask you, but this whole Epstein saga, Matthew Doyle, you know, oh, we care about women and children. We'll have a rape gang inquiry then. Oh, we care about women and children. Well, why do you keep employing paedophiles? Do you think it goes much wider within Labour? Because... or even government, because, and this sounds like a terrible thing to say because we've heard about Doyle and Mandelson. Do you know a majority, Rob, of people, no, a large number of people who contact this show are starting to say this, which I never thought I'd say this to you, right? That when you look at the royal family up to their necks in it, we find out this morning that the King knew about the £12 million loan to Andrew. When we hear about paedophiles, Mandelson, Epstein, jobs for the boys. So many people are saying the following. How many cover-ups, how many lies, how much BS is going on inside the establishment? People are losing faith in the very, I think, basics that we all took for granted.
They are. And look, the Mandelson scandal is absolutely disgusting, because at the heart of it is the fact that the Prime Minister of our country knew that a man who was a serial liar and corrupt, disgraced politician, was still friends with one of the world's most notorious paedophiles, was photographed with him, you know, stayed in his house when the guy was in jail for prostitution of a child. And the Prime Minister appointed this man to be our ambassador to Washington. He gave him one of the most prestigious jobs in the British establishment. What does that say about the character of the Prime Minister? You know,
was he under pressure to do that, do you think, by forces? This is what I'm asking. Do you think that I don't know, does
no, I think it was his decision alone, and he's the one who should ultimately take responsibility.
Do you think that Mandelson will squeal if he goes down? Genuine question.
I don't know. I mean, no doubt in Peter Mandelson's mind, he thinks there's going to be another comeback. It was only the other day that he was giving a glossy interview to the Times, pictured with his dog in his house in Wiltshire, saying that he was the one who was, you know, hard done by. So God knows what's going through his mind. But at the end of the day, you know, the British public don't care about Peter Mandelson. The people care about what's actually happening in their own lives.
But what
they worry about, Jeremy, is the fact that nothing is happening in government.
Yeah.
We have a weak Prime Minister, and they want to have a proper, strong government that can actually get things done.
But I have to ask this, because you think about Wes Streeting's text messages and the fact that security services have banned other cabinet ministers. Do you believe it goes wider within the Labour Party? The thing that's affected Doyle and Mandelson, do you think it goes wider?
I don't know. Look, I really don't know. But I am shocked that people could turn a blind eye to friendships with paedophiles and think that it's appropriate that they're given the highest possible offices, the grandest offices that our country has to offer. What does that say about the character of these people? And you're right to say it speaks to the character of Wes Streeting as well. Why is he sending, you know, love and kisses to Peter Mandelson, disgraced liar, you know, depraved person who's friends with Jeffrey Epstein. You know, people have to take responsibility for their actions. But I say my primary concern is that at a moment when people's living standards are really tough, there's so many challenges in the NHS and immigration, you name it, all the things that your callers have been raising today, we've got a government that's collapsing into chaos. That we need strong leadership. That is why I do believe Nigel is the right person to lead our country, because he is going to be a strong Prime Minister and he's building a good team, you know, serious policies and able to actually get a grip on the country at long last.
Let's go to Hampshire on the phones. Good words. Laura Jane, you're through to Robert Jenrick. Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to Reform, Mr. Jenrick. As somebody who has had 2 prime ministers in her family, including one that you mentioned, I feel very strongly that the offices of the Secretaries of State, 2 of them should be people who really have worked in the business. I'm talking about Catherine Barbel Singh, who runs Michaela School in London, and also speaking as a retired teacher. I feel very strongly that somebody who has actually done the job and is doing it now should be given that. The Secretary for Education. So in his speech in Birmingham, Nigel did mention that he wanted people with experience. And I have written to him, but I know that, you know, only people who are in his constituency get responses. And I would like you to ask him if he has approached Catherine Barbel Singh for the great office of Education Secretary.
Well, very good question. I don't know that, but I do know Catherine Barbel Singh and can say she is one of the great teachers and head teachers of her generation. What she's done at the Michaela Free School is absolutely astonishing. I've been there myself. I set up a free school in my constituency in Newark, and we tried to emulate some of the things that she's done there, which have made such a difference to people's lives. It's now one of the best schools in the whole country. And the broader point you make is right. Of course, politics has its own skill set, if you like, and there's a role for people who understand the way that government operates. But actually, we want to get in people into government, sat around the cabinet table, who are great businessmen and women, farmers, veterans, teachers, people who've run prisons well, people who've been great leaders in the NHS, you name it. And one of the things that Nigel has said is that he wants to do that in a way that no prior Prime Minister has done. So there'll be a mix of people in his cabinet, some with depth of experience of government and politics, but many, perhaps a majority, who are coming in from the outside, who are not part of the old political parties, perhaps even have been shunned by them.
And
I think the British public will really respond to that.
I agree with that. Laura Jane, thank you so much for your question. Talking about education, actually, the current Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, this came out this morning. Transgender women could keep using ladies' loos at work for years after the Labour's Phillipson admits that long-awaited watchdog guidance does not cover the workplace, Robert Jenrick. I'm just going to put this. Imagine I'm a voter. I don't want my teenage daughter going into a changing room, I don't mean to be disrespectful, sir, and a man with a penis undressing. And I have no idea why all those women activists who talk about women's safety, and we're back there again to Starmer, why does nobody make that point?
Yeah. Look, why is it so difficult for this Labour government to just say what a woman is, to believe in basic biology and common sense? It has literally had to go all the way to the Supreme Court for Keir Starmer, and it seems Bridget Phillipson, to be told the definition of a woman. And now, months later, it's going to be years later, she still can't even bring forward some basic guidance so that this can actually be put into effect in our schools, our prisons, our workplaces, our public spaces across the whole of the country. It just beggars belief. It was 2020, I think, when I sought to change the law to say that no public building in this country could be built without having a woman-only toilet. You could have gender-neutral toilets if you want, but there has to be a women's-only toilet.
Safe,
Basic common sense. And yet, all these years later, we still seem to be arguing over this. What is Bridget Phillipson's problem? Well, I can tell you what her problem is. She's probably got one eye on becoming leader of the Labour Party, or what's going to come next when Keir Starmer goes in the coming months. And she thinks that there's a group of activists, hard left activists within the Labour Party, who are more interested in pushing this extreme version of trans rights than they are about basic common sense and protecting women and girls. Well, I'm a dad of 3 daughters. I don't want them to be going to school or to the cinema or entering the workplace and not being able to do something as simple as go to the toilet in a safe space which is only for women.
I agree. Let's go to Manchester very quickly. Derek, you're through to Robert Jenrick. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing, Robert?
Good morning.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, with Reform making all these promises, would one of them promises be to make a manifesto a legally binding document that the public could hold you to? Because you know, for years we've had all the different parties, your ex-party included, making promises on things like immigration down to the tens of thousands and never, ever keeping a single promises. We've got this lot running rife now. They've not kept a single promise that they made before they got in office, and the public can't do anything about it. We should be able to sack this government.
Well, look, I hope you will sack this government when the general election comes along, but the point you're making is right. People are so disillusioned in the country because they keep voting for governments, both Labour and Conservative, who make promises only to break them. I mean, some of those promises they don't even try to keep. That was ultimately what got me so frustrated about the Tory party and immigration. It stood on a platform of reducing immigration, and then it designed an immigration system that did precisely the opposite. It ended up with 1 million people coming into the country. What I can say to you is this. I'm determined, and I know Nigel is as well, that the manifesto that Reform puts forward will be clear, simple, honest promises that we will do everything to keep, that everything within that will be fully costed, and serious, rigorous, credible plans. And we're not going to lie to the British public, as has happened time and again, purely to get into office. That has to be what we stand for. And so nothing that we say in the months and the years to come will be anything other than fully costed, clearly thought through, and something we all know we can deliver if we're lucky enough to get into office.
One of the stories that really this week has left so many of us feeling sick was the story of the Afghan migrant who was found guilty yesterday of raping a 12-year-old girl. This was in Nuneaton. I should give a shout out to George Finch, the leader, the youngest leader of a council actually in Warwickshire, the Reform leader George Finch. He actually highlighted this story some weeks ago. Ahmed Mullakil, 23, laughed, Robert, as he raped, sexually assaulted and took indecent images of the schoolgirl in Nuneaton. But this is what I want to ask you about. You were the immigration minister. You've worked in the Home Office, a place that I'm told isn't fit for purpose. He was only identified by the police after he used his Home Office issued debit card to buy her a drink after he'd raped her. I'm talking to you as a dad. A Home Office issued debit card. What the hell is that all about?
Yeah, no, it's completely disgusting, isn't it? The generosity of the British public has been abused beyond words. That someone has come into this country supposedly seeking sanctuary, been given accommodation, money to live off, a debit card, as you say.
Were you aware when you were in the Home Office about those debit cards?
No, I didn't. I mean, I knew that people are given sums of money to pay for, you know, the basics of life, like cosmetic, not cosmetic, like, toiletries and so on. But not that they would, should have the money to go and buy drinks and so on. But the point is, a man like that should not be in the country in the first place. Yeah. So we can debate how they're housed, what money they're given, what access they have to doctors and dentists and all this stuff. And I understand how angry the public are when they hear that these people are getting preferential treatment and enjoying things that they would never be able to do. But the most important question is, how do you stop them coming in the first place? We've got to ensure that illegal migrants do not enter this country, and where they do, they are detained so they cannot walk the streets of places like Coventry and are never in a position to do this to a British person. And until we actually wrestle with that fundamental challenge, this will continue to happen up and down our country. And that is the difference that Reform offer. It's not interested merely in managing the symptoms of this problem. It's determined to fix it wholesale so it never happens again.
Brilliant. Listen, a really fascinating 45 minutes, Rob, and so many different questions from people covering a wide spectrum. But the last one might be the most difficult one, because I specialise in this. This is from Mrs. Jenrick.
Oh,
What's
no.
he planning?
Is this my wife or my mother?
Well, I don't know.
I don't know which one I'm more worried about.
Your wife. No. Tim says, what's Jenrick doing for Valentine's Day then? Come on, Jenrick.
Would you believe it? My wife has actually gone away. She's gone to a wedding this weekend, so I'm home alone.
Your wife has left you on Valentine's Day?
Exactly, yeah. She's gone to her niece's wedding.
Why didn't you go?
Well, I've got work to do, haven't I? I'm going to be out knocking on some doors. I'm
going to make you laugh
in a very wet Nottinghamshire on Saturday morning.
We were asking everybody about Valentine's Day.
So it'll probably be me home alone.
Right.
With a takeaway.
Sob story here.
Watching, I don't know, what are we watching at the moment?
Reruns of the Jeremy Kyle Show. Listen to this great thing in the papers earlier.
What are you doing? Are you going to take me on a date, Jeremy?
No, I'm with my wife. What does that mean? No, listen. Blimey, that didn't sound right. A dishwasher row ended my 20-year marriage. Pals bashed me for leaving my kids, but I'm a walkaway wife. I'm not ashamed. Cat Farmer said, and I quote to the papers yesterday, it was about the dishwasher. That part finally pushed me over the edge. After
really?
dinner on Tuesday night, I could feel his eyes boring in the back of me, so I decided to shove the plates and glasses and cutlery and just piling it haphazardly. Kat's husband at the time always loads the dishwasher with care and the precision of a Scandinavian architect and said to her, your attempt looks like you're a raccoon on drugs. We're over. I hope you have a bad... No, I'm not taking you out, Jenrick. What are you doing? Mrs. Carl will be texting now going, yeah, you go out on the drink with him. Don't be honest. I can have an early night. Thank you so much,
Very nice
mate.
to see you again, Anne.
Really good.
See you soon.
We'll get him back in a couple of weeks. Ring Rob, exclusive to Talk Breakfast. What is it, 12 minutes to 10? Samara Gill next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Just gone 10 to 10. This is JK Live and exclusive on Talk Breakfast. We're not here this week. Hurrah! Go the 11 people that listen. Is it Mar Dolan? The team will be here. They're very excited about that. I'm having half-term off with my hordes of children, and I'm not going out on a Valentine's date with Robert Jenrick. Samara Gill, the light of my life, good morning.
Good morning.
Fresh from your interview in Birmingham with Nigel Farage, you've done it again, girl. What you got for me?
I've got an exclusive for you. It's Jennifer Mallet, who I remember when you covered that story, and we've been covering it really since she got
This is the nurse.
suspended.
Just refresh people. This is brilliant. This is the nurse who was suspended and faced an inquiry because she misgendered
a convicted paedophile who called her the N-word when she was trying to treat him. So, interestingly, you know, she was exonerated. We were outside the tribunal when that happened. Talk has been following this for a very long time, and no one else seems to be in terms of, you know, I don't see any of the other media outlets, you know, showing sympathy to this woman. Well, she tried to go and talk to Bridget Phillipson of Labour yesterday.
Bridget Phillipson, who says that you can still, transgender women can still use ladies' loos. It doesn't cover the workplace. Yeah,
well,
that one.
Let's have a look at just what she had to say directly after that meeting.
OK. Do you feel deceived by how Labour has treated this case, by how Labour's treated the guidance on trans people in the workplace?
I feel quite really disappointed in the way that this is being kept for so long. you know, and lying to the public and lying to us as well, the Darlington nurses, you know, Sandy Peggy, and having to face this traumatic ordeal for over 2 years. And after the Supreme Court ruling in April last year, we were hoping that at least some guidelines are out there, but today, hearing that from the government and from Bridget is very disappointing and deflating. You know, the nurses that are looking forward to safeguard them in their workplace, that is like walking on eggshells at the moment. Going to work, people are afraid going to work. Some of them are coming off the profession now. The Equality and Human Rights Commission guidelines, they need to make sure that it covers everything. So it does not just work for a certain group of workforce environments. This is something that is unified, you know, in all sectors. It doesn't segregate just the NHS alone or these other workforce environments. This is the reality they cannot hide for. Black is black, white is white, green is green, and we need to face reality. Biology is real. A man is a man and a woman is a woman. God created them male and female. Genesis 1:27, and that's the word of God.
That's Jennifer. Can I just repeat this story? She misgendered by mistake a transgender paedophile convicted, and he called her, or am I allowed to say he, she? I've no idea, so don't have a go at me. Am I going to be arrested? I've no idea. Let's call them. Well, I don't know what. See, this is the bloody problem. But he used the N-word, and she spent 2 years worrying for her career.
Exactly. And look, she has been exonerated, but this is the amazing woman that Jennifer is. She is going to Labour and telling them, hey, we need a set of rules in place, a set of restrictions to say that this will never happen again. And unfortunately, what she got from Labour yesterday is the computer says no. I mean, Bridget Phillipson, quote, said, there is no delay. It's the process we are following. I don't want to get into that good practice over there into the world, but what I will say... What? She's speaking in jargon. She says the code of practice applies to services and associations. It doesn't apply to workplace regulations. So she's essentially saying there's no way we can protect you because of bureaucratic red tape, which I'm so sick of the Labour Party using in order to not protect British citizens and seemingly protect everyone else.
There is an interesting connection. I wish we had more time. They go on about safety of women, but they seem to promote paedophiles. They talk about the safety of British citizens, but they take councils to court who say, in Epping, our people are more important than people who shouldn't be there. That's the discrepancy, isn't it?
Absolutely. And, you know, the Darlington nurses were also there. I was talking to Jennifer and them behind the scenes, and they were saying they've just received a bunch of tosh all day from politicians coming up, wanting their little media grab from them, and they're not actually doing anything for the cause. So when you hear these politicians bang on about women's rights, just remember that they're not actually helping people like Jennifer Mallet out on the streets who actually faced the causes and had their life absolutely destroyed.
You're a legend, Samara girl. We need you more. Look at Laura, good morning.
Laura in Wiltshire, currently in London. I think Starmer and his government show complete and utter contempt for the people that they claim to represent, the working class. Who cares about class? We care about people working. And people like Jim Radcliffe want to help people work. Working people should be defined as people who get up, go to work, pay their taxes, and not on benefits. And I think that we should completely ignore his protestations. He has complete contempt for the working person. Great show.
This is the Political Asylum, current affairs, international news, letting criminals off while sending... Oi! Oi! You shut up! I'm trying to record something.
Stand by for 3 powerhouse hours of breaking news, challenging views. I don't give a flying damn about international law. I think people will viscerally reject this.
We're with you every weekday night, Monday to Friday, 7 until 10 p.m, right here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Of course, Valentine's Day on Saturday. I'm not here next week. I'm on half term. What are you going to do? Robert Jenrick's on his own. What are you doing, Julia Hartley-Burr?
Do you know what we always do? we get fish and chips and have a bottle of fizz.
Why,
Because
mate?
I hate, you know what, because I'm an ex-waitress. Hate going out on Valentine's night. Because
You were a waitress?
Years.
Oh,
years,
my
years,
God.
years.
I can imagine you as an air hostess. You got them down the aisle. Tea, coffee, done.
Sit down.
Yeah, shut
Put
up.
your seat belt on. No, I always hated Valentine's night because it was a load of people who don't normally go out who were sitting there at the table. Not talking to each other.
Yeah,
Never
well,
happens in my family. My husband dreams of that. Dreams of it.
Well, I've met him.
Could we be one of those couples?
The poor man, you know, earphones. This man's got bloody plugs in. He wears them the whole time. This Jim Radcliffe story, fascinating,
It's absolutely
right?
brilliant. I mean, not bad timing for the Prime Minister. And of course, who does he think he is calling on him to apologise?
Ineos.
I'm sorry. He was talking about an island of strangers this
Yes,
time
he
last
was.
year, wasn't he?
Did he
Or be
backtrack?